the Cardcaptor Wizard of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251 The Voice Behind. In the camp, everyone cheered as they watched the fire in the distance. Who cares what method is used when they can directly solve the opponent without getting close? Eugene was also a little surprised. The scale of the Death Eaters who attacked the camp before was only in the single digits, just a small fight. Now it seems that these weapons are really effective. However, he did not swell his confidence. He knew that the victory this time was mainly because the Death Eaters encountered these weapons for the first time and were caught off guard, but the good news is that they can still maintain the information gap advantage for quite a while. It is not a good habit to open champagne in the half. Let everyone calm down. Eugene led them directly to the opposite side, raised his hand to send away the wailing Death Eaters, and then finished off the corpses one by one. There were really two who pretended to be dead. One was a dark wizard who apparated directly and ran away, and the other was a thick-skinned female demon. The female demon was shot in the head by a grumpy old man, and the dark wizard was chased by Eugene and Mrs. Lauren. A few seconds later, the two returned to the original place, solved. While speaking, Mrs. Lauren still felt a little regretful. She originally thought that there would be an ambush on the opposite side, but the dark wizard not only did not lead her to find other dark wizards, but also split up as soon as he landed. It was a waste of her feelings. Eugene also felt a little regretful and tied the pocket with a traceless extension spell back to his waist, but although he failed to expand the results of the battle, the results that have been achieved need to be used well. Eugene looked at his neighbors and friends and showed a sunny smile. This is the first large-scale Death Eater attack we have encountered, but it will not be the last attack we encounter. Similarly, this will not be the last victory we have achieved, because of the clear future goals. Bernard trained Eugene in eloquent skills in the last year of Hogwarts. Of course, Professor Grindelwald may have contributed a little. In short, the employees of the British Ministry of Magic in the future are blessed, since the Death Eaters had already begun to lose to Voldemort's subordinates. Eugene's camp soon attracted Voldemort's attention. However, due to some special reasons, Voldemort was a little PTSD about going out these days, so he couldn't personally lead the team to encircle and suppress this newly appeared camp that dared to resist him. There was no way. He had just met Professor Dumbledore 2 days ago, and Professor Grindelwald, who happened to be free, was also there. The two centenarians directly joined forces to pin him to the ground and beat him up. If it weren't for the Horcrux to save his life, he might not have come back. However, although he didn't dare to go out, Voldemort had other excuses. Was this small force worthy of him to do it himself? Let the Ministry of Magic come forward and use any excuse to get rid of those people. Voldemort looked at the current Minister of Magic, Pius Thickness, who was controlled by the Imperious Curse, and sat in the corner of the conference room in a daze. Yes, Master, Piers. Thickness nodded. In this way, Eugene's camp will be elevated to the same level as the Ministry of Magic. Blinking his eyes, Adam disappeared in Voldemort's meeting room, and no one noticed that he had been there. Although you earn your own status when you are away from home, in fact, your status is also closely related to the status of your opponent. If Eugene keeps fighting against these scattered Death Eaters, how long will it take for his reputation to be transformed into support for his position as Minister of Magic? But when the Ministry of Magic took action against them, Eugene and his camp, who were fighting against the Ministry of Magic, were elevated to the same level as the Ministry of Magic. In nature, everyone will unconsciously compare Eugene with the current Minister of Magic, because they are the leaders of both forces. Just like everyone often compares Voldemort with Professor Dumbledore, it's just that the latter compares strength, while the former compares whether they are qualified as leaders. The stage has been set, and next, it depends on how Eugene performs back in his room. Adam calmed down and continued to study the spiritual dimension, which is the direction he has mainly devoted his energy to during this period. After all, this is the real improvement that belongs to him. Other things can be postponed unless they are life-threatening matters that Adam cares about. Anyway, he has enough time. Spirituality, the core and most essential thing of all things, is an inherent internal attribute. People usually give it names such as soul and spiritual body. As he studied in depth, Adam found that the spiritual dimension was even more metaphysical than the mental dimension. Fortunately, Adam had the help of Fox. He had witnessed Fox's nirvana with his own eyes and was able to watch it again and again through the magic of time, abandoning the way of observing the material world and watching it after anchoring in the mental dimension. Adam can clearly capture the forces outside the material and mental dimensions in the process of nirvana, the power of the spiritual dimension. Fox's spirituality was not surprising to Adam at all. Warm, gentle, and full of vitality, this is the core and essence of Fox. Its personality, strength, appearance, and all these things, whether tangible or intangible, combined together to form the name Fox, are all developed from this source. So, what is the attribute of my spirituality? Adam couldn't help but feel a little curious. It is very difficult to capture the spiritual power in oneself. The reason why it was so smooth when targeting Fox was because Fox's power in the spiritual dimension was strong enough, but Adam was just a human being. This is what Adam thought at first, but this shouldn't be normal. Looking at his own human form, with the outline of his face faintly visible, the spiritual power of the Book of Seals in one hand and the Staff of Darkness in the other, Adam's brain began to work rapidly. After careful observation for a while, Adam found that his spiritual power was growing little by little with the help of the Book of Seals and the Staff of Darkness. Although the degree was so small that it was negligible and the process was so slow that it was outrageous, it was going on all the time. So, is this the essence of the Book of Seals and the Staff of Darkness? The power in the spiritual dimension can make my spirituality stronger. Adam habitually touched his chin and analyzed. The Book of Seals and the Staff of Darkness don't have such power. All this is the result of your own efforts. The voice that suddenly sounded from behind made Adam's whole body go wild in an instant, and his back was covered with cold sweat. Who is it? Adam suddenly opened his eyes, stood up, turned around and summoned the dark staff. The protective magic on his body was running to the extreme, and the surrounding space was also divided and blocked. This is a safe house with a Fidelia spell, and why does the other party know the names of the sealed book and the dark staff? You are very vigilant, very good. What came into view was a man with glasses and an oriental style. The other party was looking at Adam and nodding with a smile. Chapter 252, The Magician Kuro and number 039, S-Class is now open. Who are you? Adam's eyes widened. The other person's appearance was secondary. The main thing was the other person's clothes. Adam was too familiar. He has several similar ones. Have you focused on strengthening the protection of time, space and mind? It's done well. It can be seen that a lot of effort has been put into it. Before Adam could finish speaking, the other party continued speaking on his own. Walking towards Adam as he spoke, Adam subconsciously stepped back to distance himself from the other person. After all, even with that person, he was not that familiar with the other person yet, but the retreating movement did not widen the distance between the two of them at all, and Adam still stayed where he was. But in this case, wouldn't your surroundings still fall into the control of others? Passing by Adam, the man's tone still contained a relaxed smile. Adam turned around and wanted to look at him, but found that he couldn't. The relative distance and position between you and the other party has never changed. No, to be precise, it has not changed because of your actions. Adam was moving, but the surrounding space was also moving in the opposite direction. The result was that Adam seemed to be running on a treadmill. After moving for a long time, he was actually still in the same place. Wheel cards and ingot cards cannot prevent the other party from controlling the surrounding space. Noticing this, Adam recalled what the other party said and directly propped up the protective magic. The unexpected smoothness made Adam not only wary but also a little surprised when he faced the other party. Well, it's just a little joke. After all, it's just a little bit of spirituality. If you really want to do something, you can't do it. The man spread his hands, his face full of helplessness, as if he was unable to resist. I believe you are the only one who has a ghost. The corners of his eyes twitched fiercely, and Adam's back was now feeling cold. It was the first time in his life that he felt so powerless. Are you Kuro? You can say yes, you can say no. The man regained his relaxed expression. If nothing else, Kuro is dead now. I am the little spirit he left in the Book of Sealings. You can call me Kuro, Adam? ? Don't say such nonsense with such a serious face. But, Adam was startled. The language you just spoke in. If the other party hadn't suddenly made such a joke that shouldn't appear in English communication, he wouldn't have noticed it. What language was the other party using? Isn't it amazing? This is spiritual communication. It can be done no matter it's from different countries or different races, or even communication with the laws of the world. Crowley Rideau, Adam decided to call him that for now, looked at Adam and smiled. Are you very powerful, envious, and curious about why the Clow card doesn't have this ability? So, Elio Hirajisal's bad character who can play with Yamazaki really followed you? Kuro Rideau, yes, so why? Although, he really wanted to slap the dark staff directly on the opponent's face, but unfortunately there was a high probability that he wouldn't be able to hide him, so Adam could only say cooperatively, well, don't worry, this is why I appear in front of you. Kuro Rideau didn't seem to see Adam's thoughts at all, or maybe he did, but this was exactly what he wanted to see. Anyway, he nodded with satisfaction. You signed a contract with a Clow card and became a Clow magician. Then you are more or less half a disciple of Clow Rideau. It seems a little bad that I haven't given you a single lesson. However, it would be a waste of time to take all the basic lessons, so he arranged for me to show up at this time and give you a lesson, maybe? Crowley Rideau spread his hands. Well, after all, he didn't say anything to me when he left me. This is all my own guess based on the current situation. Is this so casual? However, the surprise was that it was Kuro Rideau. So, you showed up just to teach me how to communicate spiritually? Oh, of course not. Don't you already know that? Adam was stunned. What he just spoke was not English, eh? When? Dang. This is magic, isn't it magical? Kuro Rideau smiled and said, okay, don't waste time, let's start class. Although the guy in front of him was visibly unattractive, his ability was also visibly strong. Adam put away the staff of darkness, sat down and began to listen obediently. Well, let me think about it. Where to start? Kuro Rideau touched his chin and thought for a while, then suddenly gave a high five. Let's start with the Clow card. I wonder if you have noticed that the Clow card is actually not as complicated as you think. Adam. Hedda, do you want to hear what you're talking about? Look on his face. You must know that he is still far away from fully learning the Clow card. Although the She card and the She card were learned through the magic spells of the age line, Adam has only now learned the 4 Clow cards of earth, water, wind and fire and water, not to mention light, darkness and more difficult ones. No more, let me tell you, haven't you noticed that the magic you have learned in less than 10 years is already at a level that countless magicians cannot achieve in a lifetime? Adam frowned when he heard Kuro Rideau's words. This is also true. Also, the same Clow card can actually do very many things, so many that it can't even be described by one kind of magic. Kuro Rideau continued. Adam nodded. It's true. For example, a fire card is actually all fire magic. Did you notice? This isn't actually magic, is it? Kuro Rideau opened his eyes. His expression actually revealed a bit of seriousness. It's obviously a magic circle, but why can it produce various effects? Adam frowned, thinking of the magic circle he learned from the Clow card and what Clow Rideau said just now. A sentence that Kuro Rideau said earlier came to Adam's mind. It focuses on strengthening the protection of time, space and mind. Adam muttered and repeated it, and then cast the protective magic again. This time he did not disperse the magic circle directly, but maintained the magic power when casting the spell, so that the magic circle could be maintained. Really, it's different. Adam's eyes widened. The magic circle in front of him was very different from what he first learned from the shield. Although he did make certain modifications to the shield's magic circle, the changes were not to this extent. BGO Crowley Rideau gave Adam a thumbs up. It seems that your brain works a little faster than I thought. It's probably 70-80% as good as his. Adam opened his mouth but was speechless. He knew that the him in this sentence was Crowley Rideau, and he was 7 or 8 points like Crowley Rideau, which was actually a very high compliment for him. After all, Kuro Rideau's talent understands everything. Even the Clow card was made by him. But listen, why is it so awkward? Chapter 253 The Essence of the Clow Cards. So, question, although Adam felt a little awkward, his attention was still on Kuro Rideau, and he immediately sat up straight after hearing this. What is the essence of the Clow card? Kuro Rideau stretched out a finger and showed a very formal expression. The essence of the Clow card. Adam blinked. It's magic. Every Clow card is living magic itself, which Clow card itself has certified. Crowley Rideau nodded. Well, what then? Adam thought for a moment. The rules of the world, the process of a magician releasing spells is essentially using the rules of the world to induce the power of the world with spiritual power, thereby releasing the so-called spells. Therefore, magic, or magic circle, is essentially a manifestation of the rules of the world. Then, what? And then, seeing that Adam did not give an answer quickly this time, Kurorito prompted, "How many worlds are there in total?" Adam was stunned. "It's endless, not to mention the world in the past life and this life. Just in the world that Adam is in now, endless parallel worlds are born and disappear every minute and every second, and there are countless worlds created that are different enough from the current one. The parallel world that continues, so the rules of these worlds are the same. Since different worlds have been formed, the directions of development must be different, and the rules will naturally be more or less different. If there are two worlds that have gone in different directions since the birth of the universe, they may even form very different world rules." Adam mentally answered the question, but he didn't answer immediately because Adam knew that the key to these questions was not the answers themselves, but the questions were essentially the way Kurorito led him to think about that question. That question is the key. What is the essence of the Clow card? Clow cards are the rules of the world, but in different worlds, the rules will obviously be different. So what is the essence of the Clow card? Why can a Clow card contain so many spells, and the magic circle in it also changes on its own? With a guess in his mind, Adam stretched out his palm, and the magic power outlined a magic circle in his palm, which was exactly the same as the magic circle in Clow's card. Seeing this scene, Kurorito raised his lips. Sure enough, the simple magic circle in the Clow card is actually not very effective. Adam was slightly startled. After outlining the magic circle, he could release the magic. Who would continue to observe the changes in the magic circle after releasing the magic? While surprised, Adam became more and more certain of his guess. Although it was a bit unbelievable, but the essence of the Clow card is the world rules common to all realms? Kurorito smiled and clapped. Great, that's right. The Clow card is the work of Kurorito after he consolidated himself. Each Clow card contains the most basic magic circle, just like the base wine in a cocktail. A seed with thousands of possibilities can be used in all worlds, and it can also evolve based on it. Well, if according to some worlds, the Clow card is the basic formula of magic. After substituting the specific world rules and needs, you can get most of the magic circles you want. Kurorito snapped his fingers, and based on a magic circle, countless changes were made. Dozens of complex magic circles were transformed in just a few seconds. Through these magic arrays, compared with the original magic array, Clow Magician will be able to learn magic knowledge more safely and efficiently, and become a great magician who can truly fully understand magic and create magic on his own. Adam memorized those magic circles with gleaming eyes, because the magic circle as the basis was the time card. Perhaps some students will ask at this time, Teacher, since the Clow card can produce the magic you want, why do you need to learn it yourself? Pushing up his glasses, Kurorito said in a funny way, with this idea, you will encounter this problem when you really meet a powerful magician. Others may understand the power you are using better than you. Kurorito stretched out his hand as he spoke, and the protective magic around Adam's body collapsed in the blink of an eye. Finally, Kurorito's finger touched Adam's forehead a little bit in front of his eyebrows, and was blocked by a thin shield. You see, magic is the power of knowledge, and it is also the power that cannot be fooled. Only what you truly master will not betray you. The center of his eyebrows felt itchy, and Adam swallowed. Kurorito's spirituality did not lie. He was indeed only partially spiritual and had almost no power, so even the most basic protective magic circle in the shield can block him, but he has the knowledge of Kurorito's true nature. Therefore, the extra protection that Adam built was worse than a paper shield in front of the opponent, because those powers are all illusory. Powers that Adam himself does not understand and cannot truly control. But those words sounded so familiar, it felt like the math teacher in my previous life had said similar words. Remember what I said? The Book of Sealing and the Rod of Darkness do not have the power to grow your spirituality. Only when your understanding of magic increases can your spirituality truly grow and develop. Okay, this should be enough for Kuro Magician's class, right? You will have to walk the next step on your own. If you continue teaching, I'm afraid it will only turn you into another Kurorito. Then what else does it mean? Kurorito took back his hand and put a relaxed smile on his face again. Actually, you've exceeded my expectations now. Emotion is the biggest variable in magic. This path is great as for anchoring yourself. I haven't tried it, but it looks interesting. Adam was speechless. He anchored himself mainly because he wanted to become immortal, and secondly because he wanted to obtain more magic power, but Kurorito has achieved the goal of truly living to the point where he wants to die on his own, and his magic power has probably never been insufficient. It's no wonder that the way to anchor himself is in the eyes of Kurorito. It can only be regarded as quite interesting. Well, it's almost time. As he spoke, Kurorito's figure began to flicker and flicker as if the signal was poor, but he seemed to be expecting it. Let me give you one last gift. In addition, I will also give you my experience after staying in this world for a while. Please work hard. After saying that, Kurorito disappeared in front of Adam, leaving only a glowing point of light. Adam was about to reach out and touch it, but he didn't expect the light spot to expand in an instant, and the white light engulfed Adam directly. Chapter 254 Kurorito and number 039, S gift. The insidious guy with glasses, you teased me before he left, Adam roared madly. In the white world it was also his fault that he was blinded by Kurorito's previous image of a serious teacher, so he was pulled in without any precautions as for what this world is for, and whether it is harmful to Adam. There is no harm in it, it is just that there is a little bit of knowledge that needs to be learned, and only after you have learned it can you go out. Adam raised his head, looked at the dozens of mountains of books in front of him, and twitched the corner of his mouth. Just a little bit. In the short time that Kurorito's spirit has been in this world, even if it was not out of his subjective will, he has analyzed a large number of rules of this world and, perhaps with the idea of its all here. Kurorito didn't intend to waste this knowledge, so there were these dozen mountains of books in front of Adam. In addition, there is the gift that Kurorito mentioned, conquer your own magic. Adam looked at the tallest building in the mountain of books and took a deep breath. Okay, isn't it all for yourself that you have learned all this? The rules of the world he lives in are, of course, the more the better. If Adam can completely understand all the rules of the world, then it is not empty talk for him to say he is omnipotent in this world, and the magic that restrains oneself is absolutely cutting-edge magic knowledge. After closing time, you no longer need to worry about the time and space paradox affecting you. The time you are in is real. Even if Adam goes back hundreds of years and blows up the Earth, everything he has experienced will still exist because of his existence. Of course, if you really want to do this, you need to add another step: split time, and make the Earth explosion event into an event that happened in a parallel world. Otherwise, Adam is fine, which does not mean that others will be fine too. Confining the parallel world allows Adam to freely travel to different parallel worlds, and at the same time, he can obtain the power from the parallel world. This is also the magic used by Kurorito to travel to multiple parallel worlds. All in all, the mountains of books in this white world are full of magical knowledge that countless people dream of. It is tantamount to a huge gift for Adam, but I don't feel so happy at all. After finishing half of the book, Adam looked at the sky and was speechless for a while. These magical knowledge were not learned by rote memorization, but by truly understanding the rules behind the runes, combinations and magic circles. Comparing the size of the finished half of the mountain of books, Adam counted on his fingers and felt that he might have to study here for hundreds of years. I hope time flows differently in this world than outside. Although he knew that lamenting would not work, Adam couldn't help but sigh. Then he sorted out his mood and devoted himself to studying. Self-pity will not change the current situation. The only way to get out is to learn. As long as you can't learn to die, learn to die. Learning makes me happy. Just do it, Ollie. There is no calendar day in the mountains, and the year is unknown in the cold weather. The world with nothing but himself and the book made Adam's perception of time blurred. After finally completing the study of the knowledge in the last book, Adam subconsciously reached out to touch, but found nothing. Only then did Adam realize that he had finished studying the last book. Adam sighed again. This time it was much more complicated than before. Except for the initial period, he really felt the joy of learning later on. After all, programming may be a bit boring, but what about ether editing technology that can directly modify reality? With a sigh, the white world shattered. Adam sat on his bed. Everything around him felt strange and familiar at the same time. Moses, can you hear me? Well, you should have digested all my gifts by the time you hear this sound, right? A familiar voice from Kurorito rang in his ears. It was hard. Adam's fist became hard all of a sudden. Did you feel the charm of magic during this process? The feeling of controlling the world by one's own power is so intoxicating, the voice continued, and then the conversation changed. Now if you try again, you should be able to complete the spiritual anchoring, right? Adam was stunned for a moment, trying to sense his own spirituality. Just in the process of perception, Adam felt the difference. This was due to his complete control over himself, including himself in the spiritual dimension. Adam saw that the self in the spiritual dimension no longer had only one outline. Every line was exactly the same as the self in the material dimension. He held the book of sealing in one hand and the rod of darkness in the other. Indeed, the spiritual power gathered in this way is more perfect than the originally planned state, and we can start directly. Well, you try it yourself. I'm just making a guess based on your current situation. After all, I've never done this kind of thing. Crowley Ritto's voice suddenly became a little unreliable again. Adam's eyes twitched and he decided to adjust it again. Okay, finally it's about time. The biggest difference between the spiritual and other dimensions is time. This is a rule used to measure changes, but the spiritual dimension does not completely follow this rule. So, don't worry, the process of digesting my gift did not take any unit of time. Although he was mentally prepared, Adam was relieved after getting Kurori Ito's explanation. "Eh? You don't believe it just like that?" Adam raised his hand, and the golden cursive words appeared in the air. "The objective time now is indeed as Kurori Ito said." "Really?" "Of course, everything of a magician still depends on himself. Remember, magic is a force that cannot be fooled. Okay, this is the final farewell." Kurori Ito's voice became illusory. "Maybe one day, we will meet unexpectedly somewhere. After all, magic is also the power of miracles." Adam was stunned. Kurori Ito said that he was dead, so can we still meet unexpectedly? Wait, the spiritual dimension does not completely follow the rules of time, is it? Oh. I'm really looking forward to that day." Adam moved his wrist and said with gritted teeth, "When the time comes, I will hit you hard in the face with this punch, you sinister glasses boy." I heard it. Adam almost choked after sitting there for a few minutes. There was still no movement. Adam left the safe house cursing and went to the principal's office to seek comfort from Ziook and Sibi. How can there be such a bad person in the world? Chapter 255, Reunion, Duel Contest. After returning from the White World, Adam stayed in the office for about a semester to adjust himself. It's not that his condition has been adjusted, but that a semester has passed and it's time for the brothers to get together again. Oh, long time no see, everyone, eh? Considering the size and strength of the other people, Adam specifically chose Eugene. As soon as he opened the door, he received a warm hug. Eugene was a little confused, but he still gave Adam a backhand hug. "Haven't seen you for a long time." He has indeed experienced a lot in the past 6 months. He has to manage a growing camp, and he has to confront the Ministry of Magic in various senses. It is inevitable that a long time has passed, but Adam is obviously the principal at Hogwarts, so why is he so busy? Professor McGonagall, who was forced to run Hogwarts for the next semester because Adam was doing nothing, said, After the 5 of them took their seats, Bernard looked at Eugene and joked, "Eugene, you are very capable now. We heard about the unyielding light of justice and the last hope of the wizarding world after the Ministry of Magic's corruption just after we returned to England. Ahem. It's all nonsense from the newspaper people." Eugene blushed. "Forget it." In front of others, it was unclear who was sitting here. "Newspaper company? Can you bribe the Daily Prophet?" Adam was a little surprised. The people at the Daily Prophet were the kind of people who would help whoever wins. How could Eugene let them speak for him, eh? "Adam, don't you know, Eugene and the others now have their own newspaper, called the Wizard's News. It specializes in reporting on the things covered up by the Daily Prophet and the scandals in the Ministry of Magic, and at the same time, it popularizes some defense against the dark arts knowledge of technology." Cologne looked at Adam doubtfully. "Although it is now defined as a publication prohibited from sale and dissemination by the Ministry of Magic, this newspaper has been famous for a few months, right? We all heard about it just after returning to the UK. How could you not know? They even help you advertise." "It's over." "Oh, I was too busy some time ago. I didn't even have time to take care of Hogwarts, and I didn't know much about the outside world." Adam touched the back of his neck and smiled apologetically at the somewhat disappointed Eugene. "It won't happen again." Maybe. It's very helpless to be inferior to others in terms of skills, so in fact, Adam's words may not necessarily count. It did sound like force majeure. Eugene sighed. "So, you don't even know about the Death Eater's siege of Hogwarts, do you, Adam?" Death Eaters besieged Hogwarts? When did it happen? Adam's face was full of confusion. Why haven't Professor McGonagall or the others told me? Probably because they thought you must know. After all, Bellatrix tried to break into Hogwarts with a group of werewolves and dark wizards that time, but they couldn't even get in. Everyone thought you were casting a spell to protect them. Hogwarts, Eugene's expression was very complicated. Originally, I thought so too, but you didn't know it. So, that was your default protective magic, rather than you maintaining the protective magic yourself. Yes, Adam was inexplicably relieved. When he was not facing an opponent of the level of Quirrell Rideau, the protective magic was still quite strong. After hearing this, everyone sighed. Adam's strength was really becoming more and more unworthy of a human being. While they were talking, the food started to be served, and everyone started to move their chopsticks. Oh. Did Adam cook it himself this time? Well, it's been a long time since I've cooked in person. The house elves can't do a good job in handling some delicate things. I haven't eaten in a long time. Not sure what Adam was feeling after saying this. For a long time, everyone was pleasantly surprised to taste a more familiar taste after a long absence. Speaking of it, Bernard swallowed his mouthful and looked at Adam and Eugene, his eyes shining. I really didn't expect that. I was just exploring the deep mountains and old forests with Cologne, and you would make such a big noise. Of course, Bernard was talking about Muggle weapons that can be used in the wizarding world. The Ministry of Magic once denounced this behavior as a betrayal of wizards and magic. As a result, Eugene and the others backhandedly posted in the wizarding newspaper that the Ministry of Magic was bombarded. Pictures of teeth scattered all over the floor. The title is also very straightforward. What else can such a Ministry of Magic protect? Adam frowned when he heard this. For the protection of those weapons, security at the warehouse is at the highest level, and I carry the most important parts with me at all times. Eugene smiled and said, and I am the only one who knows the anti-interference spell. The ones I have stored cannot be used in the gathering place of wizards. Adam nodded and then said, you still can't let your guard down too much? Arthur Weasley can also use the anti-interference curse. The possibility of him being controlled by the Imperious Curse cannot be completely ruled out. So, Adam raised his hand, and an extremely complex magic circle took shape in the blink of an eye, split into 4 parts and fell on everyone. Although everyone except Adam could not see the magic circle directly, they could feel the changes in themselves. Protective magic can last for a year under normal circumstances, and if it is triggered, I will receive a message here. Adam put down his hand and felt that the book on White World was not on vain. Would it be directly put to use? Wow. Then we can wander around in the Amazon as we please. Bernard couldn't help but said excitedly, I don't recommend you do this. In order to avoid affecting your daily life, this protective magic requires a certain intensity of attack to be triggered. For example, high temperature, bullet impact, powerful spells, powerful magical animal attacks, etc. Adam spread his hands. But if you are going to the Amazon, the really powerful things there are not these things. Protective magic such as insect bites and toxins can control it. That's it. Bernard sighed. He was bitten by bugs twice this time. He originally thought he could say goodbye to these little devils completely. Help me break this spell, Uther suddenly spoke, facing Adam's doubtful gaze. Uther sighed. Although this magic is very practical, I'm afraid that if I use this magic to participate in a duel competition, people will directly accuse me of cheating. Duel competition? Everyone's eyes lit up, and they put down their chopsticks and looked at Uther. Are you going to participate in the duel competition? This year? Well, I signed up last year. This duel competition will be held in the United States. The official competition will start a few months later. Uther had long said that he wanted to win the duel tournament and come back, and even sought training from Professor Flitwick for this purpose because everyone's strength increased rapidly under the guidance of Professor Grindelwald. Uther did not have time to sign up for the youth group competition. Unexpectedly, this time he went directly to sign up for the official competition. America. I haven't been to America yet, so let's go and cheer you up. Colin pumped his fist. Well, I feel like I'm almost out of tune with city life if I stay in the Amazon all the time. I might as well go somewhere else. Bernard nodded. Chapter 256 Hufflepuff Protagonist Law. Okay, I wanted to invite you to be my family and friends. Uther certainly wouldn't have an objection. Otherwise, wow, it seems you are very confident. Cologne was a little surprised. The scope of participation in the duel competition is very wide. As long as you are shameless enough, you can still participate even if your beard is white, but usually no one does this even so. Basically the age of the champions of the duel competition is around 30 years old. Youth or strength? If you say that he will definitely win the championship of the youth group, Cologne is absolutely sure, but the official competition, or, you still sign up for the youth group competition, although he didn't catch up with the last session, Youther can still participate in the next youth group competition according to his age. Don't worry, I know Youther's duel skills better than you, and you can't see him fully display it in the Forbidden Forest. Dueling is a skill for fighting against wizards, and the key lies in the grasp of spells and timing. As Youther's sparring partner for quite a long time, Bernard is very clear about Youther's abilities, even if they were only his past abilities now. After Professor Grindelwald's teaching and Egypt's training for the next pharaoh, Youther will only be stronger than he was then. Unfortunately, the duel competition cannot be subjective, and Youther cannot show his full strength. 2 months later, at the airport, Adam, Youther's eyes widened. Why do you have time to come here? At that time, Adam and Eugene did not respond, and everyone assumed that they had no time to go. After all, they had so many people to take care of. Bernard and Cologne smiled without saying a word. After all, they were already surprised when they got on the plane. Everything in Hogwarts is on the right track, and it can be completely let go to the professors. Don't worry, I am still in touch with Hogwarts. Adam took out a two-way mirror and shook it, then couldn't help looking forward to the wizard's own mobile phones. In the future there was no way the anti-interference spell could work on mobile phones and base stations, but it could work on invisible and intangible electromagnetic waves. Even if Adam could do it, he could only control one end and not the other. Why are you not welcome? How could it be? Youther patted Adam on the shoulder after the initial surprise. Everyone paid attention to the issue of food and accommodation. For fairness considerations, the duel competition will be responsible for the food and accommodation of the contestants, so I can't live with you. Youther glanced at the address written on the paper and frowned in disdain. It wasn't even a hotel, but a residence next to the competition venue. Youther's vocabulary couldn't even accurately describe what those simple buildings belonged to. If Adam was asked to describe it, he would choose the term Japanese Olympic Village, although Youther probably couldn't get it. Can't live somewhere else. Cologne followed with a frown. Unfortunately, I can't. Youther sighed. Let's not talk about this. I've booked a room at the New York International Hotel for you. Come with me. There are only 2 games a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. The duel competition will last for more than a month. We can have a good time in New York. On the way, Youther introduced the 3 people. You can't live outside, but you can go out to play. Cologne didn't understand. There will be a detection spell when you enter the residence, so it doesn't matter. But you have to be careful. There may be contestants who will take advantage of other contestants' absences to do tricks. Youther looked natural, and it was obvious that he had done a lot of homework on the duel competition. A sneak attack is the dumbest choice. It is more likely to create some accidents, so that the contestants have to expose their magic in front of the muggles and be detained by the local Ministry of Magic and miss the game, or put some intelligence-enhancing drugs in the food, which is a cheating potion, etc. Well, it doesn't sound new. Bernard raised his eyebrows. If necessary, I can provide you with legal assistance, but as far as I know, the American Magical Congress may not be very receptive to this. Eugene is working hard to become the Minister of Magic, and of course he can't just play by himself. He has studied a lot of laws and files in the wizarding world, not only those in the British wizarding world, but also those in the United States in general. Combined with the laws and files, if the laws of muggles must at least try to maintain nominal fairness and justice between the lines, then the laws of wizards can be said to be not even performed, and fairness and justice are only nominal rhetoric. It doesn't matter. I can provide you with military assistance. Adam snapped his fingers. Believe me, Americans are very receptive to this, and Professor Grindelwald has personally certified it. The 3 blinked. It's true. When Professor Grindelwald teaches them, especially when he teaches 6th and 7th grade students, he usually evaluates their strength based on the aurors of various countries. For example, Bernard's group, very good. With your strength, even if you blow up Times Square, you can still operate in front of the aurors of the Magic Congress. Believe me, they won't chase you. Originally, Adam was just joking when he said this. Who would have thought that Uther would actually encounter such a thing? Sorry, I didn't hear you clearly just now. Can you please say it again? Facing the 4 aurors of the Magic Congress of the United States, Adam used his little finger to pick his ears. One of the aurors frowned impatiently, but still spoke. Today, I didn't ask you to speak. Adam raised his hand and the auror was forced to mute himself. Seeing this, the 4 aurors were about to draw their wands, but the next moment they all prostrated themselves on the ground, unable to move due to gravity. Now Adam was able to control gravity to push people down, but at the same time he would not hurt the other party's brain and internal organs. This morning, Uther sighed and began to recount what he had encountered. One of the aurors on the ground spat out blood while he was talking. Adam glanced at him. It is difficult to control the force to step over an ant without killing it. How much money do you make a month and how much employee benefits do you have? Is it worth your efforts? The auror stopped struggling. Adam looked at Uther. Keep talking. Uther's retelling was detailed because he didn't know what happened specifically. To sum up, he was accused of showing magic on a street in the morning, which led to a rapid increase in the possibility of the wizarding world being exposed to muggles, and even caused the 4 pointers of the headquarters of the Magic Congress to turn to the dangerous level of level 4. After investigation, the aurors of the Magic Congress locked Uther as the suspect, but the problem was that Uther was walking in Central Park at the time, so when the aurors came to arrest him, Uther was also confused. Even though he had known that such a thing might happen before, he only thought that he might encounter a shooting or other environment that forced him to cast a spell. Who would have thought that something that had nothing to do with him could also affect him? Knowing that he couldn't just follow the aurors, Uther came to Adam as soon as he got rid of the aurors. So, we Hufflepuffs are passers-by in the UK, and we will automatically become the protagonists in the United States. Adam's expression was a little subtle. What is this? Is it the Hufflepuff protagonist law? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Cooperating with the Investigation. Let's go. After listening to Uther's story, Adam made the decision. Let's go? Where? To investigate the Magic Congress. Cologne was a little excited, because it was said that Professor Scamander had also made a big fuss in the Magic Congress of the United States. Yes, let's go directly to the Magic Congress of the United States. Wait, let me recall whether I have seen any information about the Magic Congress of the United States. Bernard frowned. There was very little information about this. At least in his memory, Newt was able to investigate the Magic Congress of the United States and knew every area of the Congress very well. He had the help of someone from the Magic Congress. It was almost impossible for outsiders to replicate it, so Adam didn't plan to replicate it. No need to recall, just know the address of the Magic Congress. I know this, the Woolworth building. I say, do you have anyone else coming? If not, then I'll start. While talking, Adam and his friends each moved a chair and sat in the lobby of the Woolworth building, the headquarters of the Magic Congress of the United States. The floor was full of people. The person Adam was talking to was also on the ground. It was said that it was a certain vice president. Anyway, he should be the most senior official among the people on the ground. Vice President Ross was lying on the ground with his eyes wide open at first. Adam and his team went directly into the Magical Congress of the United States and asked the front desk to call out the person who could be in charge. People thought that a madman had come, but after checking, the front desk found that there was indeed a wanted criminal among the people who came. The problem was that aurors had been sent to hunt him down before. Then the front desk saw the 4 aurors lying on the ground until Vice President Ross received the news and took the elevator down. Adam and his team were already in their current appearance. 4 people were sitting on 4 chairs in the middle of the hall, and the ground was full of Magical Congress staff. Some were wailing, and some were simply motionless at that time. Vice President Ross's heart was full of absurdity and anger. Arrogant. Too arrogant. It's okay to make trouble, but you dare to sit directly in the hall of the Magical Congress of the United States. This is simply not treating the people of the Magical Congress of the United States as human beings. As a result, Adam defeated him and his subordinates with a few gestures. Since he heard his subordinates calling him vice chairman, Adam was kind enough to let him continue to call people. Vice Chairman Ross gritted his teeth and told Adam to wait when the first wave of Aura support failed. Vice Chairman Ross still gritted his teeth when the third wave of Aura support failed. Vice Chairman Ross was already confused when the fifth wave of Aura support failed. Vice Chairman Ross began to think about how to submit his resignation so that he would not commit suicide with 8 spells on his back when the 10th wave of Aura support failed. Vice Chairman Ross silently crossed out the wording of his last words in his mind. He no longer needed that kind of thing. Is there no one here? After all, it is an official institution that governs wizards in a country. The Magical Congress of the United States has so few people. Adam played with a wand in his hand. He really hadn't used this wand for a long time. Vice Chairman Ross was silent, looking like he had been played with. Seeing his appearance, Adam didn't embarrass him anymore, but kicked a young man who kept shouting "ouch yo" at his feet. Hey! Stop pretending, get up and answer my questions, or I'll make you like him. Adam pointed at a wizard who had just taken out a flintlock for this guy who didn't follow martial ethics. Adam pinched him in the air, and made him merge with the flintlock, truly achieving the unity of man and gun. You and me and you. As for the others, don't think that these people are either shouting or sleeping soundly. In fact, at most they have broken 7 or 8 bones, which can be solved by drinking a bottle of potion and lying down for a few days. For wizards, this injury is not even as serious as a Quidditch game, so why are they lying on the ground with a serious injury? Good question. The question is that I originally wanted to get up, but I saw that Adam raised his hand and broke the bones of more than 40 aurors. And they fell to the ground one by one and became my partners, so I laid down again. The bottom line of the employees of the Magical Congress of the United States is so flexible. The one at Adam's feet was obviously in the same situation. After hearing Adam's words, his waist and legs were no longer sore, and he nodded and asked Adam if he had any instructions. Do you have only these few people in New York in the Magical Congress of the United States? There must be more than that. Maybe other vice presidents know the situation here, so they ordered a change in strategy. I guess someone will come to negotiate soon. It's true that this kid is quite familiar with the procedures of the Magical Congress. I'm not a terrorist, and I don't want any money. Adam sat in the hall and said to the wizard outside the door, I'm here to cooperate with you in the investigation. The wizard outside the door? Question mark. Well, before you say this, do you want to look at the people on the ground around you? Just based on this scene, you are more like Bin Laden than Abdullah. If you are not a terrorist, then who is? Is it his Aunt Susan next door? Even though there are many things he wants to say, he is just a messenger and can only convey Adam's words truthfully. In a branch of the Magical Congress, the 2 vice presidents who received the message looked at each other. Cooperate in the investigation? Yes, not long ago, this friend of mine whom you accused. Adam pointed at Uther behind him. Using magic in front of ordinary people may expose the wizarding world to muggles. By the way, he is a contestant in this duel competition. Hearing this familiar plot, the 2 vice presidents opposite took a deep breath. We are aware and we will quickly investigate who caused this incident. During the investigation, we can allow this gentleman to participate in the duel competition normally. No matter who did it, if he dared to use Macusa as a swordsman and cut such hard things, he would be dead. Even Jesus couldn't save him. They said, this is as it should be. Adam nodded and then said, it's just that my friend was not at the place you mentioned at that time, but the aura responsible for arresting him insisted that he was a suspect. This was a plot that was not seen in the classic plots of the past, so much so that the 2 vice chairmen were stunned for a moment. They have seen a lot of people who create conditions to maliciously get contestants involved in cases, not only dueling competitions, but also wizard chess competitions and the like. This method is almost universal as long as it is an international competition, so when they heard about this matter, they didn't even hesitate to deal with it. But the person identified as the suspect was not at the scene at the time of the incident, then the situation would be much more complicated. Looking at them, Adam had a polite smile on his face. So I would like to ask everyone to cooperate in the investigation. Who on earth determined this crime for my friend? Chapter 258, a classic move of sacrificing a pawn to save the king. After hearing Adam's words and recalling what he just said, the 2 vice chairmen were speechless. When you said you would cooperate with the investigation, you asked us to cooperate with your investigation, right? Okay, we will definitely find out the situation as soon as possible. Ahem. This cannot be called cowardice, it can only be said to be a strategic retreat. After all, The Magic Congress in New York only has so many people, so it is impossible to defeat them. As for people from other states, not to mention whether they have the right to transfer, whether they are willing to come or not is still a question. After seeing Adam off, the two vice chairmen looked at each other. What? Now, I've never encountered anything like this before. There are only a handful of people in the entire Magical Congress who can convict an alien wizard out of thin air and directly send orders to arrest him. Why would such a person get involved in the duel competition? Otherwise, inform the chairman and arrest him. Only the chairman has the power to mobilize the full strength of the Magic Congress, and the real elites of the Magic Congress are now with the chairman. Although the orders looked useless in front of Adam this time, the two vice presidents were not disappointed with the power of the Magic Congress under the words and deeds of their seniors. They have also seen the world and know that some wizards are indeed very powerful and cannot be dealt with by dozens of ordinary aurors. But that's all. If we could gather the power of the entire Magic Congress, wouldn't a mere thug be easily captured? Do you really think that everyone is Grindelwald and can kill 7 in and out of the Magic Congress casually? Don't they? America have no respect for a face. Just thinking about the chairman who had been away for several years and had never come back even a few times after wrangling abroad, the two vice chairmen felt a headache. Forget it. Let's check first, perhaps. We are overthinking it. However, the fact is that there is no if. That night, the two of them sat at the same table with the fourth vice chairman of the New York headquarters. Although the vice chairman did not come forward directly, he had already taken the position of vice chairman. No one knew who was who, and whose power it was. There was no need to wait until the next day. Originally, they were surprised that the other party, as one of the 4 vice chairmen of the headquarters, did not show up from the beginning to the end. It turned out that he had a guilty conscience. After sitting down, the 3 of them looked at each other without saying a word. In the end, one of the vice chairmen spoke first. George, I hope you can give us an explanation as to why you would do such a thing? As far as I know, your son did not participate in this duel competition, right? This sentence may seem like nothing wrong, but in fact it stabs George directly in the heart, because his son is a squib with a sharp twitch in the corner of his eye. George had the intention to say a few thoughtful words starting with F to greet the other person's family, but he also knew that the current situation did not allow him to mess around again with his current status and power. What he has to do now is to cooperate with the Magic Congress to get this matter out of the way. If it really makes a big fuss, not only will the Magic Congress be embarrassed, but his end will also not be pretty. Therefore, he could only snort coldly, and then told the cause and effect of the matter. To put it simply, Uther's appearance is a bit too deceptive. As a young adult who is old enough to even sign up for the youth competition, it is natural that his odds of winning are set very high in the black market gambling. As a result, several markets received bets totaling more than 100,000 gold galleons on the first day, and Uther won. In the past few days, bets totaling more than 200,000 gold galleons were added up one after another. Ser wins every game against Uther. Why does George know so well? Because these odds were opened by him. Originally, he didn't pay too much attention to it. There are always gamblers like this who want to take a big gamble. It's normal to win and lose in this kind of thing. However, the strength shown by Uther made him unable to sit still. Although the subsequent odds are dynamically adjusted, the bets that have been placed will not be affected by the changes in odds. At the beginning, in order to show ridicule to this guy who was overestimating his abilities and create a topic, Uther won the championship. The odds are exaggeratedly 1 to 10,000. If Uther could really win all the way and finally win the championship, even if George was not good at math, he could tell with just a few fingers that this gambling money would expand into a terrifying figure. Not only will all his years of business in black and white be in vain, but he may even have to sell off a lot of his family fortune. It can also be seen from this that George is indeed not very good at mathematics. The 2 vice chairmen shook their heads and suggested, "You'd better cut it off with the people who opened the black market as soon as possible. If you really have to pay, you won't be able to afford it. I know that I have already been doing it after receiving today's news, but my accumulation over the years." George was so angry that he gritted his teeth, withdrew the deal and ran away. Even if his reputation in the black market was completely ruined, doing business in a place like the black market was all about credibility. Who would trust him in the future? Thinking of those small coins that had grown wings and flown away, George became angrier and angrier. He took a step back and thought about it, and the more he thought about it, the more he lost. That group of people must be working together to cheat. I was just careless and didn't dodge. The 2 vice chairmen said, yes, You are right anyway, they are not the ones losing money. They are having fun watching it, so why don't they let the population get high? So, what to do now? The first vice president to break the silence tapped the table with his finger, attracting the attention of the other two. I have to remind you too that, excluding asking for help from the chairman and asking for help from other countries, we do not have the strength to defeat the opponent head-on, whether it is asking for help from the chairman and letting the chairman rush back to the United States with elite orders, which will affect the voice of the Magic Congress on the ruins of the Sky Garden, or asking for help from other countries and throwing the face of the Magic Congress to other countries for them to step on. It will completely ruin the future, and the future of the entire family. The vice president who put forward these 2 points certainly could not make such a decision. After all, what does this have to do with him? That thug broke into the headquarters of the Magic Congress? He is simply the second Grindelwald. George spoke indignantly, while the other two vice presidents, one was observing whether there were scratches on his freshly polished leather shoes, and the other was looking at his freshly trimmed nails. What a joke. You want to casually classify someone as an international criminal of the level of Grindelwald, and come to get the support of other countries' magic ministries for free? Are you qualified? The Magic Congress of the United States is not the United States Congress. No, George sighed. This is Oglaze's own decision. He accepted a bribe from a contestant. I will deal with him and give him a satisfactory answer. A classic move of sacrificing a pawn to save the king. The two vice presidents nodded with satisfaction. Arrange it as soon as possible. Blaze is a powerful supervisor in George's department. Not only does he have enough weight to take the blame, but the vacant position can also bring enough benefits to the two vice presidents. It can be said that it is a happy result. What about the other vice president? So many orders were defeated, and the Magic Congress lost so much face. Doesn't it need someone to take the blame? Calculating the time, he should be on the way to commit suicide out of fear of crime, right? Chapter 259. Good boy. It in number 039, SU. Not in a hurry to go back until night, Uther and Adam went to the New York International Hotel first. Handsome. So handsome, Bernard couldn't help but applaud Adam's domineering demeanor just now. This way, there won't be any risks in Uther's subsequent games. I thought the hundreds of thousands of gold galleons I bought on the black market would be wasted. Adam. Al? What? Cologne. Had a black question mark on his face. How much did you say you pressed? And when did you go to the black market? Several 100,000. I just went there before. Adam was also speechless. Didn't you say you went shopping for souvenirs? Isn't American money an American specialty? Bernard put his hands on his hips and said confidently, if I wasn't afraid that the dealer wouldn't be able to pay the compensation if the 1 to 10,000 bet was too much, I would have put all my belongings up. Can a banker worth more than 1 billion afford to pay compensation? Cologne's eyes widened. With so much money, who is still running the black market? Is it possible that only people with so much money are qualified to start trading in the black market? Bernard raised his head proudly. So, is it possible that when people are pushed into a situation, they don't even plan to pay for it, but choose to directly deal with the person who raised the issue? Adam touched his chin and raised his eyebrows. Oh, don't worry. I have deliberately disguised myself. Professor Grindelwald taught me the transformation magic. They can't find out my identity. Bernard waved his hand nonchalantly. But they can find out my identity. Bernard's back felt cold, and he turned around to see Uther standing behind him with a faint look on his face. Okay, I finally know why I'm being targeted. You kid, are you the one who led the Japs here? Captain, don't shoot. We are one of our own. Looking at Bernard, who was pinned to the ground by Uther with a blaster due to a mistake, Adam shook his head. Tell you to go to the cinema less often and see what is in your DNA now. After talking and talking, after calming down, Adam still reminded Bernard that he should be prepared for the other party to run away. Compared to the loss of more than 1 billion, any choice the other party makes is possible. No, Bernard buttoned his coat. Isn't it still you? Help me recover the debt, and we will split it 30-70 by then. Adam's eyes lit up. Me 7, I'll go. Bernard rolled his eyes. You have almost taken over the entire Diagon Alley and the entire village of Hogsmeade, and you still care about my little money. The more the merrier. Who would think too much money is too much? Adam was just joking, But speaking of which, why would you even think of gambling on the black market when you're short of money? Maybe. He spent hundreds of thousands of gold galleons gambling at once, but he didn't look like he was short of money. Not knowing the outcome is gambling, knowing the outcome is investment. What Bernard said is very reasonable. Besides, my parents have been unemployed for the past 2 years. I thought I would just let them wash their hands of the problem. I just wanted to use my previous savings to reserve more funds. Have your parents' money been converted into pounds? Then you have made preparations quite early. That's not because of this, but because in just over a year, Death Eaters have caused no less than 100 terrorist attacks across the UK. They not only kill people, they also destroy things. Speaking of this, Bernard glanced at Adam with some resentment. From the British Museum to private collectors, everywhere the Death Eaters went was covered with debris. Not even a good brick was left. The British Defence Minister has resigned 3 times, and everyone is doubting whether the British it's so safe that the pound has depreciated rapidly during this period. Adam, do you have any idea? Adam was instantly embarrassed. This turns out to be my own fault, although not all of these incidents are related to Adam. But, no, this was clearly done by the evil-doing Voldemort and Death Eaters. What does it have to do with him? Adam Reed, ahem, what clue can I have? Maybe Death Eaters will also visit the United States. Adam shrugged his shoulders and said that there seemed to be a lot of good things in the Metropolitan Museum. However, they had just smashed the headquarters of the Magic Congress, and they couldn't be so eager to attack the Metropolitan Museum. They had to wait for them to leave the United States first, so Adam quickly changed the topic. Okay, for the sake of Uncle and Aunt, I will help you recover this money. If he can't pay, I will help you make up for it. That's not a big deal, just pay as much as you have. Bernard estimated that no matter how poor the other party was, they could always afford 1 billion gold galleons. Right, it's okay, it's just a small amount of money, and like you said, the opponent must be quite powerful. Adam counted on his fingers. Savings, power, identity, life, soul. You can piece it all together, but I can't lose it. Hiss. Bernard took a breath of air and gave Adam a thumbs up. You should be ruthless. Reward, maximize the use of resources. In a few words, although Adam and the others did not know the identity of Vice Chairman George, his future had already been arranged. Uther heard that he should be able to get a share, but he was affected, and the most he could get was 10%. Uther didn't even bother to bring this amount of money back from the United States. Think about it. Forget it. The Magical Congress was more efficient than Adam imagined and told him they had caught the person. The next day Adam was shocked. He knew that the person must be in the Magic Congress, but was this too fast? The quarrel was not so fast, right? Only when he came to Magical Congress and saw people did Adam know what was going on. Looking at the 2 corpses on the ground, Adam smiled. Do I look like I'm easy to deceive? Why did Mr. Adam say that? I don't know who this guy is, but I just met this guy yesterday. It's clear from his appearance that he didn't know anything beforehand. I have no enmity with you two, so why do you think you are treating me as a fool? One of them is the director of the No Mag Misinformation Department, but the other one is clearly the deputy chairman who directed the Aurors to fight him that day. Does he know about Uther, Mr. Adam? Actions and behaviors can be disguised. After our investigation, former Vice Chairman Ross Hacker was indeed the person who planned and arranged this incident. And Bryce White, as the head of the No Mag Misinformation Division, the supervisor, is the person responsible for carrying out this incident, and these are the relevant documents and evidence. As one of the vice chairmen spoke, he pushed a stack of folders in front of Adam. It's a pity that when we arrested him, we encountered fierce resistance. 2 Aurors were injured in the process, and Ross Hacker and Bryce White also chose to commit suicide after their escape was hopeless. We are deeply aware of this. Expressing sadness, Chapter 260. The collapse of the backbone of the Macusa. It seems that you two are determined to fool me, Adam. Did it even look at the evidence document? The 2 old men in front of him, whether they were etheric bodies, mental bodies or spiritual bodies, were clearly saying that they were lying, and he already knew who the real messenger was. The 4th Vice Chairman of the Magic Congress headquarters, George Graves, Mr. Adam, what do you mean? The 2 Vice Presidents looked at Adam and frowned. We have faithfully handed over the messenger of the Lord. Isn't Mr. Adam still satisfied? I'm afraid Mr. Fudge will not support your actions against the Magical Congress, Mr. Adam. Haha, he really won't. After all, He's dead. How long ago? Forget it, that's not important. Adam sighed and stood up from the chair. People without power, even if they shout loudly until they are hoarse, no one will care. People with power, even if they speak softly, people will listen carefully. Raising his hand and holding the wand, Adam knocked away an auror who was chanting a spell at him. I have always thought that it is right to replace the power in this sentence with strength, but I have forgotten one thing. This strength must have a prerequisite, that is, the strength known to the outside world. The auror flew backwards and crashed through 2 walls before stopping in the 3rd wall. Half of his body was embedded in the wall, and he looked limp. At least 78 bones were broken. What you up to? The 2 vice chairmen's hearts tightened, and they shouted sternly while gesturing to call people. I'm warning you not to mess around. This is the headquarters of MYSTICISm, but remembering the large group of aurors lying on the ground just downstairs just yesterday, the voices of the 2 vice chairmen inevitably sounded a bit harsh. Who would have thought that they had handed over a vice chairman to take the blame, and this guy would actually choose to break up with him directly? Even if you are not satisfied, you can still raise any conditions. Don't the British people now follow the basic law in their negotiations? The 2 vice presidents were waiting for someone, and Adam was also waiting for someone. Since he was going to take action, what was the use of just killing an auror and 2 vice presidents? Since he decided to let the world know his strength, then a MYSTICISm would barely be enough. To be honest, there are very few official forces in the world like the Magical Congress of the United States of America that would not feel the phantom pain of conscience even if they killed Adam 7 times when I was young. The Ministry of Magic over there was considered one, but unfortunately, the mysterious people there were not very knowledgeable, and their strength and status were not up to par. What Adam wanted was the final word. I still remember that yesterday, just yesterday afternoon, you promised to get to the bottom of things and find the person who convicted my innocent friend. When the aurors who were close came over, they heard Adam talking to their deputy chairman, but we obviously did it. Facing the rebuttals of the 2 vice chairmen, Adam chuckled and shook his head. Don't make trouble. We are all wizards. Legilimency, veritaserum. There are too many ways to judge authenticity. Not everything can be covered up by death. You dare to use legilimency on us? One vice chairman's face twitched, while the other frowned. You're lying. I cast a spell on this conference room in advance. You can't use legilimency on us here. Then, do you dare to take a sip of the truth serum? Faced with Adam's words, the vice chairman avoided answering. It's a joke. There are witnesses and physical evidence. Why should we drink veritaserum because of your one-sided story? It is a sophistry that forms a closed logical loop. It seems that we cannot convince the other party. In this case, there is no use in talking more. With a stroke of Adam's wand, pitch-black fire burst into flames and quickly spread to the entire building. People's hearts are unpredictable. The so-called commitment and credibility are ultimately a measure of the strength of both parties. Those who dare to break promises have the confidence that the other party will not dare to retaliate. Then, show me, what is the source of your confidence in betraying your trust? If it is just these chickens and dogs, then it will be too disappointing. Red light, green light, explosions, flames. In the intertwining of various magics, the Woolworth building was completely engulfed by the dark fire, and finally slowly collapsed with a roar. Merlin's 4th uncle's big flowered coat. You just knocked down the Magical Congress of the United States, looked at the newspaper in his hand, and then at Adam, who seemed to be fine, and felt that the world was so dreamy. What? Let me be healthy. Bernard suddenly rushed behind Cologne, bent down and put his shoulder on his shoulder to look at the newspaper. The front page showed the image of the Woolworth building collapsing in the fire, and it was still dynamic. Wow, this reporter's photography skills are pretty good. Oh, this writing style is also pretty good. At that time, the roar filled my ears, like a heavy groan, and like a dying lament. I looked at the collapsed Woolworth building, as if seeing the collapsed backbone of Magical Congress of the United States of America. Bernard straightened up, shook his head and said, if it weren't for the fact that the second page was about a prize-winning contest about the vice chairman who would be transferred to New York, I would have thought how patriotic the newspaper's publisher was. America, that's what she looks like. Adam shrugged. Oh, by the way, I've recovered your debt. Uther hasn't won the championship yet. Forget it, it will happen sooner or later. Bernard took the suitcase. His expression suddenly became serious, and he looked at Adam. Did you really kill everyone in the Woolworth building? Cologne also looked at Adam. How could it be possible? The Woolworth building has at least hundreds of floors. Even if there are only 10 people on one floor, it would take me a long time to kill them, not to mention how fast wizards run. Adam shook his head, and I used Grindelwald's Fiend Fire. You know, it can identify the target it touches. Being burned to death means that he has violated American wizard law and is enough to be sentenced to death, or in their own cognition, they have sinned so badly that they deserve to die. After being transformed by Adam, the Fiend Fire became more idealistic, and the basis for its judgment came from the person who touched the flame. The death penalty in the law of the place where the other party belongs in their cognition, and the other party's judgment of their own good and evil is bad enough to die. If one of them is met, they will be attacked by the Fiend Fire. It should be noted that a person knowing that he is doing evil and taking pride in it, and that what he does in his cognition is sinful and deserves death, these two things do not conflict. The basis of this magic is objective cognition, so there are actually only a few dozen people who were burned to death, and the rest basically just ran away, especially the civilian staff, who should have been transferred to other branches through various means long ago. Adam felt a little regretful that he did not achieve his goal well this time. He originally thought that the headquarters of the Magic Congress was attacked so badly, and the branch should have gathered people to kill, but he did not expect that no one came after. He waited for a long time. When he realized something was wrong, he chased after it through the space traces left on the ruins. Wow, there was no one even in the branch. Don't the people of the Magic Congress have any sense of collective honor? Chapter 261. A disappointing trip to the United States. Uther made it all the way to the final smoothly, and Adam and the others also bought tickets to watch this last game. Thank you so much, Uther looked at the three. Adam sitting in the first row from the edge of the field and complained, we agreed to come and be my friends and relatives to cheer me on, but no one came to see me except this one. Where is the brotherhood that has existed for so many years? We believe you will win in the end, so just come and watch the last game, Bernard argued. Finally, Adam told the truth. It was too late when we booked the tickets. Every ticket was sold out. These 3 tickets were bought from others. Oh, it's about to start. At this time, Cologne saw the referee walking into the field over there, with excitement on his face. This is the first time they have seen a formal duel match. Well, I'll go there first. Remember to cheer for me. Not long after Uther passed by, the game started, with both sides walking from the entrance channel to their respective halves. Wow, that uncle still comes to compete at such an old age? Cologne looked at Uther's opponent and couldn't help but complain. Adam and Bernard couldn't help but nodded in agreement. After all, the person opposite Uther even had white hair on his head. However, this is actually the normal situation in the past duel competitions. For a young man like Uther, it is already a very proud achievement to reach the quarterfinals, and it is unprecedented for a young man to reach the finals. Because of this, most of the surrounding audiences were cheering for Uther, hoping that Uther could create an unprecedented myth. Uther's opponent looked at the exotic young face opposite him and couldn't help but secretly cursed a pervert while bowing. Having paid attention to Uther's previous duels, Uther's opponent knew that his winning rate in this duel was only about 40%, but he did not lose his fighting spirit because of this. Even if Uther can defeat him and create a myth, he will be remembered as a supporting role in the myth, and if he can defeat Uther, with great ambition. The wizard attacked Uther, and Uther also showed his current strength in front of everyone for the first time. The stun spell, the disarming spell, the knockback spell, the iron armor spell, the final spell. Every spell is a silent spell, and every response is just right. The offensive and defensive changes between the two sides are so fast that no one even has time to blink. Bernard's face looked a little solemn, and he couldn't help but sit up straight, put himself in the position of both parties, and thought about what kind of response he would make if it were him. Adam paid more attention to Uther's movements, and couldn't help but sigh that this fighting method of using magic spells to break each other's moves and find each other's weaknesses was really cool. If you think about your fighting style, you won't dodge or block when encountering a curse. Although he looks tougher, it is not as good as Uther in terms of visual appeal. The battle lasted for several minutes, and Uther's opponent gradually became weak, and cold sweat began to break out on his forehead. On the other hand, Uther seemed to be getting better, and the connection and coordination of magic became even smoother. The situation went from bad to worse in an instant, and less than 3 seconds passed from stalemate to defeat. In the end, Uther's opponent was hit with a disarming spell and his wand was knocked away. Neatly crazy cheers and shouts rang out in the audience, and everyone couldn't help but stand up to witness this history-making scene. An 18-year-old boy won the duel competition. Uther raised his hand to catch the wand, walked to midfield and handed the wand back to his opponent. A thrilling duel. Uther's opponent took the wand, but only smiled bitterly. "You haven't tried your best yet, have you?" "No, I have tried my best. The right opponent made this duel an opportunity for me to break through." Uther's words surprised his opponent, and then he said with a more genuine smile, "It's my pleasure." The two people's hands were clasped together, and after the flash of the spotlight, the scene was frozen forever and remained in the office of the duel competition committee at the following award ceremony. Adam and the others, as a group of relatives and friends, once again took the lead in applauding and cheering for Uther. "Is this trophy made of solid gold?" As soon as the award ceremony ended, Cologne came directly to Uther's side. Based on my experience, this weight is obviously not gold. Maybe it is plated with a layer of gold on the outside." Uther weighed the trophy and then handed it to Cologne. "You went to the front again." Bernard suddenly sighed in confusion, but Uther knew what he was talking about. "It's just a coincidence. After all, dueling ability is a practical skill. Although Professor Grindelwald trained them, it only provided them with enough accumulation, which they needed to digest bit by bit during the battle. Although hunting in the Forbidden Forest and sparring with Professor Grindelwald are all battles, it is only when Uther encounters an opponent whose fighting style, strength and other aspects are very suitable for him today that he can digest the accumulated effects is the best. That's why Uther said it was a coincidence. It was indeed too much of a coincidence, and Uther's opponent also knew how rare this situation was, so he said he was honored. "I'll catch up soon." Bernard looked natural, and his tone was full of confidence. He was not playing around in the Amazon during this time. He witnessed Uther's progress with his own eyes. It was enough for him to catch up with Uther in a short time. He only needed a few more battles. Following Adam and the others to the hotel, Uther asked casually when he saw their packed luggage, "Have you finished your work?" Adam opened his mouth, and finally sighed after thousands of words. Alice, who would have thought that the three vice presidents of the Magic Congress of the United States did not reveal his identity at all when they did everything? Apart from them, other Aurors or civilian staff of the Magic Congress did not know his identity at all. Maybe the Magic Congress had the information that the vice presidents had investigated Adam at that time, but those things had long been burned down with the entire building. In other words, after Adam demolished the headquarters building of the Magic Congress of the United States and killed 7 Aurors in and out, there was no one in the Magic Congress of the United States who knew Adam's identity. After Adam used psychology to stealthily enter a relocated branch of the Magic Congress and found out this news, he was shocked as higher-ranking officials of the Magic Congress don't they even have a trusted confidant? Undoubtedly, this bad news means that Adam's plan to use the Magic Congress to promote his own military power has completely collapsed. After all, he can't take the initiative to claim responsibility for this matter, right? As for the Magic Congress, based on some clues, it found out that this matter was related to Uther's victory in the duel competition, and then based on Uther's personal information, it found his friends in Hogwarts, and then found Adam. Thinking about the vice chairman who was still talking about fudge, Adam felt that this possibility could be completely ignored. Alice, this miserable trip to the United States. Only the small amount of money that just came in can soothe his wounded heart. Chapter 262. The trap is quietly set. After returning to the UK and taking a look at the daily profit during this period, Adam couldn't help but sigh. In just a few months, Britain has been turned upside down. The battle between Eugene and the Ministry of Magic had a preliminary result during this period. The camp where Eugene was located was slightly at a disadvantage and has now moved away from its original location. Incredible. Bernard flipped through the pages at the back, but saw no more reports. How did those people from the Ministry of Magic defeat Eugene? I remember that you left 2 anti-aircraft guns for Eugene, right? Leaders who have smooth sailing and are always on track to succeed are often prone to criticism. Eugene arrived belatedly at this moment, especially when I am not the real official leader and it has not yet been revealed that Piers Thickness is Voldemort's man. Pushing too hard is not a good thing. After sitting down, Eugene said slowly, appropriate failures and setbacks will certainly cause some weak-minded people to sway and leave, but they can strengthen the cohesion of those in the camp who are truly interested in making the magic world a better place. This is like a man and woman in love. The more others oppose it, the more often it makes them feel that even if they are enemies of the world, they still want to be with each other. To put it another way, contradictions will always exist, but when there is a major contradiction, everyone will often ignore those secondary contradictions and unite together. Wow, Bernard was stunned. Eugene, to be honest, this doesn't even look like you. How did you come up with this idea? For a moment, Bernard even felt a little guilty, not that he had led Eugene astray. This is something Adam and I discussed before. Eugene smiled shyly and suddenly returned to Bernard's familiar appearance. Oh, that's not surprising, Bernard breathed a sigh of relief. Adam, has the Order of the Phoenix taken any action during this time? Cologne was even more curious about Professor Dumbledore's movements during this period. Besides, how are the land prices in Hogsmeade recently? Has Adam taken over Hogsmeade? Since confirming his dream, Cologne no longer pays attention to the operation status of exotic animals. He even expressed great expectations after hearing that Adam planned to integrate the original Hogsmeade village to build a large shopping mall. Mr. and Mrs. Berg, happy family reunion. However, Adam's progress in this area is indeed gratifying. Only less than 10% of the entire Hogsmeade village has not been acquired by Adam. The situation in Diagon Alley is a bit more difficult, with Adam acquiring just over 50% and less than 60%. As for the Order of the Phoenix that Cologne is concerned about, during your time in the United States, Voldemort was defeated twice by the team led by Professor Dumbledore, but in the end Voldemort escaped. Eugene looked at Adam. Because of his position, he knew more about Voldemort and the Order of the Phoenix than others. The Death Eaters are experiencing serious attrition, and Voldemort is getting more and more crazy. Well, I understand, Adam nodded. He already knew from the Hogwarts diary that Professor Dumbledore had invited Professor Snape to talk many times recently. It seemed that he really needed to find a way to deliver the Elder Wand to Voldemort as soon as possible. Master, you need someone who can get close to Dumbledore and make Dumbledore defenseless. Why not let Piers Thickness try? Oh. What did you say? Voldemort looked at a Death Eater, the red light in his eyes flickering. The Death Eaters who could still sit at the same table with Voldemort were all elite, but at this moment they still lowered their heads in fear, with the tip of their noses almost touching the floor. Master, I am too impatient. No, you did a good job, August. Your suggestions were very constructive. It reminded me that there is a person here who can bring extra value. Voldemort narrowed his eyes and looked at Piers Thickness, who was sitting in the corner of the room and looking straight ahead. Dumbledore is really not too wary of the Minister of Magic. He is always so hypocritical. He draws a line that he cannot cross to limit his nature. This makes him have a lot of things that he shouldn't. Some weaknesses. Piers, my servant, the reason why I have never let you reveal your identity is because I hope you can create more value. Can you complete this task for me? Of course, Master, I am willing to offer you everything. Piers Thickness's answer was half a beat slow, but Voldemort was not angry at all, but laughed. He. Although the atmosphere was still very depressing, all the Death Eaters present still started laughing in this way. A trap was quietly set against Professor Dumbledore, and Professor Dumbledore also received a message from the portrait. This, Professor Dumbledore was silent for a while. Adam also placed an undercover agent next to Voldemort. He relied on a love-hate past so many years ago to have a trustworthy undercover agent like Snape, but how did Adam do it? That's not the point, Professor. Snape was not interested in how and when Adam placed an undercover agent next to Voldemort. The key is how can you make Harry the master of the Elder Wand within 3 days? Don't worry about this, Severus. No one knows Gryffindor better than me, Professor. Dumbledore put aside his doubts and winked at Professor Snape. Leave it to me, but I also need your help. Tonight, that night, Harry met Ron and Hermione on the way back to Gryffindor Tower. After many complicated mental journeys, although there was no direct threat from the Death Eaters as an aid, the two finally achieved their goal. But the price was that Harry's mental state was tortured by these two friends during this period and became a little weak, having a toothache. Harry saw the two people walking straight towards him. He resisted the desire to turn his head and smiled. You are back. Although they had classes together in the morning and had lunch together at noon, they didn't know where they went in the afternoon. Harry said he was not curious at all. Yes, we are back. Hermione blushed and lowered her head in embarrassment. Ron pulled Hermione's arm and looked at Harry with a serious face. Harry, we came to you because we saw it before. I think it needs to be kept secret. This is not the place to talk. Let's go to the common room. In terms of confidentiality, isn't the Gryffindor common room more inappropriate than the stairs? Watching the three people walking away together, Adam blinked and followed them silently to prevent the news from being heard by some people who shouldn't hear it. Chapter 263, Reluctance to Part with Voldemort. Password. The fat lady looked at the three Harrys while holding the wine glass. Ron was silent for a moment and looked at Hermione for help. Get out of the way and let me come. Hermione pushed Ron away and stood in front of the fat lady. The 5 major exceptions to Gamp's law of transformation are: the password is correct. The fat lady nodded and made way for a few people. I really don't know why Professor McGonagall changed the password to something from the Transfiguration class. Who can tell the difference between Gryffindor Tower and Ravenclaw Tower if this continues? Ron couldn't help but complain. No. The scope of Ravenclaw's knocker has now expanded to include the knowledge of the entire library, but Gryffindor's password is limited to the classroom, and it will be told to you in advance. Hermione shook her finger. It's a good idea to memorize it or find a piece of paper and copy it down, and you can enter the common room normally. The password to enter was just a brief interlude. After entering the common room, Ron and Hermione found a corner seat, pulled Harry over, and started talking about business. Harry, we saw Professor Dumbledore coming to Hogwarts. What? Harry was startled, and then asked quickly, did you see where Professor Dumbledore went? Was he looking for Professor Gandalf? Or, to Professor Snape's office? Ron and Hermione spoke to Harry seriously and quietly. After speaking, they looked around cautiously and continued. They seemed to chat for a long time, and then they left the office directly and went to the principal's office. As for why he went there, Harry knew very well without having to tell Ron and Hermione that at Hogwarts, only the fireplace in the principal's office was connected to the Floo network. What happened that made Professor Dumbledore come to Hogwarts in person to find Professor Snape? Is it about the Order of the Phoenix? Harry knew in his heart that it must be about the Order of the Phoenix. Apart from this, nothing else would be so urgent and would allow Professor Dumbledore to come to Professor Snape. Are members of the Order of the Phoenix in danger? Are Voldemort and the Death Eaters making any moves again? Was Sirius involved? For a time, countless questions emerged in Harry's mind. He couldn't help but go back to the dormitory and took out a double-sided mirror to try to contact Sirius. However, a minute passed, and the double-sided mirror did not respond at all. After returning to the common room and sitting down, Harry pursed his lips. No, I have to go to the principal's office. I'll go with you. Ron knew Harry so well that he knew what Harry wanted to do as soon as Harry opened his mouth. What do you want to do? Hermione's eyes widened. Have you forgotten? We have monthly exams tomorrow. Ron's face turned pale when he thought of the monthly exams where parents' signatures were required. I have to go and see. Sirius will support me. Harry's voice paused, but the firmness in his tone did not diminish at all. It has nothing to do with you staying at Hogwarts. Okay, let's go together. Looking at Ron, who was pale but still didn't want to change his mind, Hermione sighed and stood up resignedly. Let's go quickly. Professor Gandalf doesn't seem to be in the principal's office right now. I hope we can get back before the monthly exams. Without further ado, the three of them set off immediately and were stopped at the door of the principal's office. Professor Gandalf is not Professor Dumbledore. Normally, Harry and the others would have no way of knowing the password, but Ron spoke at this time. At %, the painting of Anubis judging sinners remained motionless, and Hermione and Harry looked at Ron in confusion. I saw Professor Dumbledore's mouth shape when he entered the door before, and I can more or less guess it. Let me try again, Ron explained, and then began to exhaustively compare the mouth patterns. Although there were many words with the same mouth pattern, the password in the principal's office was unlikely to be a string of meaningless words. Finally, after more than 2 minutes of trying, the portrait finally moved. Go in. The portrait of Anubis slowly turned around to reveal the path to the office. Ron, you are so awesome. Hermione cheerfully gave Ron a hug. The kobold in the portrait rolled his eyes. He was so awesome, and he spoke the wrong language. If the boss hadn't told you to go in, you wouldn't have been able to get in even if you tried it until your death. Breaking into the principal's office, Harry looked around, fixed his eyes on the burning fireplace, and looked at Hermione and Ron. You really don't have to go with me. I can do it alone. No need to say any more, Harry. We are friends. and friends never leave you alone, Ron. Hermione, Harry was extremely moved. Stop yelling yet. There are no Flu fans here. How should we go? Hermione's face looked a little ugly. She didn't expect that in order to prevent students from leaving the school through this method, Professor Gandalf didn't even put Flu powder in the office. Didn't he use the Flu network himself? It doesn't matter, I'm prepared. Harry smiled and took out a packet of Flu powder from his pocket. Ron, Hermione? When did you prepare it? After the last attempt to leave Hogwarts failed, we have no time left. Let's go, Harry briefly explained, then grabbed a handful of Flu powder and threw it into the fireplace, handed the rest to Ron, and stepped into the green fireplace. Grimwald Place, number 12. Grimwald Place is now protected by the Fidelius charm, and the Flu network cannot pass directly through it, so you can only go to the vicinity first and then walk there. After Hermione, who was walking last, disappeared into the fireplace, Adam shook his head, waved his hand to restore the flames of the fireplace, and then looked at the portrait of Professor Dumbledore on the wall. It's up to Professor Dumbledore next. Professor Dumbledore on the portrait nodded, then disappeared into the portrait to find his real body. Alice, in this case, Voldemort probably won't be able to jump for a few days, right? Although it was expected, and the warranty period of Nagini left for Voldemort was about to expire, Adam still felt a little reluctant to Voldemort. Apart from anything else, Voldemort is really useful. In the short time after Voldemort's resurrection, he promoted the entire process of Eugene's camp from its establishment to its growth to the gathering of people's hearts, helped Adam get the position of Hogwarts principal, and swept away or pulled most of the upper-class forces in the wizarding world to the opposite side of justice. Not to mention that he destroyed everywhere in the UK, not only made outstanding contributions to Adam's cultural relics collection plan, but also made Adam make a lot of money by shorting the pound. There is no way. Although he is now the principal of Hogwarts, the owner of most of Hogsmeade Village, and the owner of half of Diagon Alley, but the bus is often just an empty frame. Every day when he opens his eyes, hundreds of people have to wait for him to eat, drink, defecate, and urinate. In order to prevent the economy from collapsing before Adam solves Gringotts, Adam has to suffer those leaks. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, Past and Future. As expected, every move of Harry and his friends was controlled by Professor Dumbledore. Faced with a bait thrown by Professor Dumbledore, he took the bait without hesitation. As a result, after a riot broke out at 12 Grimwald Place, Harry and his friends were scolded by Mrs. Molly and Sirius, and returned to the principal's office of Hogwarts through the fireplace in a dejected manner. At this time, Harry had no idea what the Expelliarmus he had just used against Professor Snape meant. The next step is the Ministry of Magic. Adam looked at Professor Dumbledore. Don't worry, I know Voldemort. He always despises those who are not as strong as him, and he is destined to fail because of this. Professor Dumbledore smiled slightly. It was like Grindelwald to always look down on magical animals and thought they were all low-level animals, but was stolen by the Nifflers. Blood oath, leading to failure. Thinking of this, the smile on Professor Dumbledore's face froze for a moment, but it became natural again immediately. Adam, who witnessed the whole process in the spiritual dimension, that is to say, if Professor Dumbledore really misses his old lover so much, why not get back together? Anyway, now even if you two turn evil together, you don't have to worry about causing irreparable damage to the wizarding world, so why not put down the burden? However, Adam also knows that after the death of Ariana Dumbledore, there will be no possibility between Professor Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and the relationship will be slightly eased at most. After all, no one knows who really killed Ariana at that time, so while the parties doubt and blame others, they actually hate themselves the most in their hearts. Whether it is Albus or Aberforth, maybe the person who really killed his sister was himself. As long as this possibility is not eliminated, Dumbledore will never be able to get out of this hatred for himself. It is easy to let others go, but it is difficult to let yourself go. Therefore, for some special CP purposes, Adam can only go back to the original time point. The quarrel turned into a fight under the catalysis of anger, and the spells kept flying and colliding. The three teenagers who were overwhelmed by anger did not notice the intrusion of a girl when they found that familiar figure appeared at the center of the spell collision. Under the panicked eyes of the three teenagers, the time around them seemed to be stagnant, and the aftermath of the spell stopped at a close distance. Ariana watched all this in horror, her body trembling uncontrollably, and a huge magic power was about to burst out uncontrollably at this moment. A palm gently fell on her shoulder, and the huge magic power dissipated almost at the same time. "Hello, my name is Adam. Let the two Dumbledores and Grindelwald fall into his illusion together," and Adam smiled and greeted Ariana. "Who are you?" Ariana subconsciously glanced at Aberforth, her closest brother who accompanied her the most, but for some reason, she, who was originally extremely afraid and repulsive to contact with strangers, actually felt a little bit of intimacy when facing this person. Ariana turned her head and saw Aberforth kneeling on the ground crying and wailing, and the object of his crying was himself. That was an illusion. Adam spoke at the right time. In their eyes, their battle led to the outbreak of the Obscurus in your body and your death. The young Professor Dumbledore was also in a state of collapse at this time, kneeling on the ground in a daze. With his wand rolling to the side, he tried to approach Ariana's body several times, but was driven away by Aberforth, who was disheveled and looked like an angry lion. As for Grindelwald, he fled the scene with an ugly face. After confirming Ariana's death, Ariana couldn't help but want to step forward, but was stopped by Adam, so she turned to look at Adam. "Why did you do this?" "Because that is the history they saw. I can't change history, which will put them in danger of being erased by time." History? Ariana was a little stunned. "Well, let me introduce myself again. My name is Adam, a student of Professor Dumbledore, and the next Hogwarts headmaster after Professor Dumbledore." Adam smiled and extended his hand to Ariana. Ariana subconsciously extended her hand to shake hands with Adam, but she couldn't help but say, "Hogwarts headmaster." Ariana was only easily stimulated when interacting with others because of her childhood trauma. She had no problems with intelligence and cognition, and her communication barriers were also weakened to the extreme under the effect of Adam's love card, so Adam's subsequent communication with Ariana went unexpectedly smoothly. Walking in the past Hogsmeade village, people around them turned a blind eye to the two. Adam and Ariana talked about the past for him, and also the future for Ariana. Out of inexplicable trust in the person in front of her, Ariana believed Adam's words and agreed to go to the future with Adam. "I want to accompany Aberforth and Albus." Ariana glanced at the two brothers who were still immersed in grief, and her delicate face was full of determination. "Even though I have missed them for so many years, I want to see them one day. They must be very sad." "As you wish, Ariana." Adam smiled and nodded, and stretched out his hand again. Then, hands clasped together, in the serious question and answer, the oaths turned into golden red silk threads that wrapped around the hands of the two, and finally disappeared without a trace. "Take a nap, Ariana, and you will see your brother when you wake up." Ariana fell into deep sleep under the magic, and Adam laid her flat on the grass. The tender green grass leaves formed a temporary small bed to hold the girl up. "Then, it's our turn to communicate next." Adam's eyes moved away from the sleeping girl and looked at the two boys who followed them all the way without saying a word. "You have listened to the whole conversation between Ariana and me, and you also know what will happen in the future. What do you think? Are you really my student?" Albus Dumbledore, who was still a young man, looked at Adam in front of him, who seemed to be about the same age as himself, and murmured, "Will I be so powerful in the future? Not only did I defeat Gellert, but even the students I taught can travel through time? I am worthy of it." Adam blinked. "Is the young Professor Dumbledore so naughty?" Chapter 265. I didn't expect you to be like this. Ignoring the words used to liven up the atmosphere, the young Dumbledore's mood at this time was quite complicated. First, he accidentally killed Ariana in the melee, and then found that he could not move. A person exactly like himself had replaced him and performed every move he made. In addition, he also saw another intact Ariana talking to a stranger. People are talking. With his intelligence, he could think of some things from the conversation between Adam and Ariana, but there were still many things he couldn't figure out. At the same time, Ariana's affairs also occupied most of his mind. The young Grindelwald is different. Ariana's incident did not have such a great impact on him, so he is more direct than the young Dumbledore. "Are we also using illusions just now? Why are you looking for us?" "That's not an illusion, it's a copy, or transfer." Adam briefly explained Dual Cards' abilities. "Parallel world, it's incredible." Looking at Adam, The young Grindelwald's eyes were burning. Time and parallel space are magical powers that are almost impossible to control. So, what is your purpose after spending so much effort to come to this time? It shouldn't be just to save Ariana, right? The young Grindelwald looked at Adam with more and more vigilance. Traveling through time shouldn't be something that can be done casually, right? According to you, your era should have almost no overlap with Ariana. Why would you pay such a high price to save a stranger? Stop saying that Dumbledore is your professor. If Dumbledore had such ability, he would never have done anything to save Ariana. That's right. Not to mention that you transferred us from the parallel world to this world in no time. What exactly do you want to do? After listening to the analysis of the young Grindelwald, the young Dumbledore looked at Adam with the same vigilance in his eyes. Wow. We are united front again so soon? In my time, you guys stopped talking to each other after a big war, young Grindelwald? Question mark. Facing the gaze directed at him, the young Dumbledore widened his eyes and shook his head. You know, I can't hurt you. According to the original direction, Dumbledore's love brain is now dead along with Ariana, and Grindelwald is the only love brain left between the two, but now Ariana is not dead. So not only is Dumbledore's love brain not dead, he is even still in the stage of being in love with Grindelwald and being carried away by love. Adam duly added, oh, by the way, the blood pact between you is still there now? Your blood pact was destroyed long ago in my time, but I forgot about it, young Grindelwald. Dan, young Dumbledore. Albus. Why does he know about the blood pact? The young Grindelwald looked at the young Dumbledore angrily. If it hadn't really happened, how could outsiders know such a secret thing as the blood pact between them? I didn't. It's not me, young Dumbledore was speechless. Is it difficult to understand? In his eyes, you killed his sister. Adam made a stabbing blow, and the angry young man Grindelwald suddenly became mute regarding this accident. He indeed had an unshirkable responsibility, and he also knew that it was something that Dumbledore would never forgive, otherwise he would not have thought of escaping just now. Let's talk about the purpose of doing so much. Realizing that the topic was developing in a direction that was very unfavorable to him, the young man Grindelwald quickly brought the topic back. What I want to say is actually more complicated. On the one hand, Hogwarts currently lacks professors with strong enough abilities. Since I can't find suitable candidates in my time, I can only look to the past. Nowadays, the teaching staff of Hogwarts has indeed grown several times, but it has also exposed a problem. The current overall teaching staff of Hogwarts is somewhat deformed. The middle and lower level talents are extremely rich, but there is a lack of top talents. Professor McGonagall and his disciples are indeed very capable and can fulfill the duties of professors, but that's all. Hogwarts still lacks top wizards like Dumbledore and Grindelwald who can take charge. Adam thought hard for a long time, but could not find a wizard with this level of talent in the British wizarding world. In the end, Adam's conditions were relaxed a bit, even for those who have the talent to become a top wizard. He has enough time to wait for the other person to grow up, but even if Adam relaxed the conditions, he still got nothing. But just now, Adam found it how come Dumbledore and Grindelwald were not talented enough to become top wizards like Dumbledore and Grindelwald when they were young, and it just so happens that even if wizards live a long life, there are not many people left who have seen Dumbledore and Grindelwald when they were young. In other words, he brought the teenage Dumbledore and Grindelwald to the present day, and as long as they used their original names without being blatant, there was almost no need to worry about exposure. After hearing Adam's reasons, both young Dumbledore and young Grindelwald had slightly subtle expressions. Co-author Adam spent so much effort to bring them here from the parallel world just to help Hogwarts recruit teachers. The students at Hogwarts are really lucky to have such a dedicated principal like you. Besides that, there's also a personal element to why I do this. Adam smiled and looked at the young Grindelwald. What I didn't say before is that although it's not official, Mr. Grindelwald of my time also taught me some things and was my half-professor. So I personally still hope to see the two of them come together, rather than parting ways because of an accident. After listening to Adam's words, young Dumbledore and young Grindelwald fell into thinking, it's impossible. You should have a certain understanding of time. It's impossible to change the past, otherwise there will be problems with the timeline. Adam suddenly said without starting or ending, this is why I can only bring you here from a parallel world instead of taking away Dumbledore and Grindelwald now, and why I have to use illusions after rescuing Ariana to make the world continue on its original path. You used legilimency on us. The Faces of the two teenagers suddenly turned ugly. I don't want to either, it's innate. Adam shrugged, but don't worry, I'm a Hufflepuff. Unlike Gryffindor, I have a tight mouth, so if you have more memories of the past in your mind, your children will love to see them. Oh yo, I didn't expect you to be such Professor Dumbledore and Professor Grindelwald. Chapter 266 My Past Self, My Future Self. Tisk tisk tisk. As expected, there is no distinction between ancient and modern times in this regard. Who says that ancient people can't play? After seeing the past of the two ancient people in the 1880s, Adam, a soul in the 21st century, couldn't help but marvel. Of course, he didn't watch the part where the lights were turned on. After all, the main reason for CP is the atmosphere. It would be impolite to watch it any further. It should be said that the young Dumbledore and the young Grindelwald actually danced the Argentine tango together, but it's a pity that they didn't finish a dance. Otherwise, let them lead the dance at the Hogwarts ball in the future. Not knowing that Adam was already thinking about what would happen after they joined the company, the young Dumbledore and the young Grindelwald brainstormed, but every idea they thought of was interrupted or denied by Adam. You might as well just say that we can only choose to listen to you and go to Hogwarts to be professors, the young Grindelwald said angrily. No, you can also choose to go back to the normal timeline, where Ariana is killed, and you two go your separate ways, and eventually never see each other again after a war. Adam spread his hands, leaving the two people in front of him speechless. Okay, we agree to your terms? As soon as the young Dumbledore finished speaking, he was glared at by the young Grindelwald. He could have tried to negotiate more terms. Anyway, according to the normal timeline, I will also go to Hogwarts to teach, right? And being with you is enough. The young Dumbledore's words left the young Grindelwald speechless. It really doesn't look like Professor Dumbledore was ruthless to Grindelwald at all. Adam narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but imagine how the two pairs of Dumbledore and Grindelwald would get along after meeting each other. It must be very interesting. The process of crossing time is not as complicated as the young Dumbledore and the young Grindelwald imagined. It seems that they have reached their destination in just a blink of an eye. I really think you are fooling us, the young Dumbledore murmured as he waved his wand to show the current time. Simple and efficient enough is powerful magic. Adam clapped his hands. Okay, let's emphasize your identities again. No, my name is Brian. His name is Campbell. How can I forget it if it's so simple? The young Dumbledore waved his hands. These two names were one of their original middle names. How could he remember them wrong? Not only do I want you to remember, but I also want you to get used to it, and you can't react subconsciously when others call Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Adam said seriously. Once exposed and the timeline is destroyed, you should know the consequences, right? For most wizards, time is something they would never think of studying, but this is not the case for young Dumbledore and young Grindelwald at this time. They have been trying to seek many powers for the greater benefit, even myths and legends are included, and the power of time is of course also involved. Hearing Adam's words, the young Dumbledore's expression also became serious, and he nodded solemnly. We will get used to it as soon as possible. Yeah, Adam nodded seriously in response, and then couldn't help laughing. Then, let's go to Hogwarts first. You and Ariana will live there in the future. If any of the four of you were here, seeing the smile on Adam's face at this time, they would definitely shout, run. However, none of the four of them were here at this time, so the young Dumbledore and the young Grindelwald followed Adam to the principal's office without noticing. Grindelwald, who was waiting in the office, heard the sound of the door opening, turned his head and said, Adam, I have something to do tomorrow and need to take a leave. I have already told Thomas to let him take a class. Seeing the two people walking into the door behind Adam, Grindelwald's brain was stuck directly, and even the words he said mechanically were a bit erratic. In the next few minutes, Grindelwald's brain was blank, and what he saw, heard and thought in his mind were completely unconnected. Is this my future self? The young Grindelwald looked at the old man staring at them in a daze, and his eyes couldn't help but twitch, and at the same time, his eyes became more complicated. This is what happens when you get older. You can't accept the huge changes in the world, Adam said with great emotion, ignoring the portrait of Professor Dumbledore who stumbled out of the frame, and took the two out of the office. I'll take you to the professor's dormitory where you live first. Let him digest it first. Although Adam had briefly mentioned the future of the normal timeline before, the two teenagers couldn't help but feel a little heavy when they really saw one of the parties involved. The hands held together were so tight that they hurt each other. However, halfway through the journey, the two of them came to their senses. It was not about their future selves, but about Adam. Did you deliberately let us meet the current Grindelwald? It's Grindelwald. Don't forget that you are no longer Grindelwald, but Campbell. I know. Facing the young Grindelwald's relentless gaze, Adam imitated Professor Dumbledore's wink. You saw it just now. Grindelwald came to me to ask for leave. I didn't make an appointment with him. How could I know where Grindelwald was in advance? The two of them couldn't help but look blank when they saw him like this. Yes, you see, it's up to us whether we believe it or not. At the same time, number 12 Grimwald Place, ping. A crisp sound rang out on the second floor. Professor Dumbledore pursed his lips, took a few deep breaths, pulled out his wand, cast a repair as before, and put the teacup back on the table. Then, Professor Dumbledore looked at the portrait beside him. His eyes were empty. What did you say you saw just now? I saw Adam with the young you, and the young Grindelwald. Professor Dumbledore's portrait couldn't help but be in a trance when speaking. The scene was really too shocking. Although the portrait is not the wizard himself, a powerful wizard can make the portrait have the wizard's own memory and personality, and even have wisdom similar to the wizard himself. Obviously, Professor Dumbledore is a powerful wizard, but his portrait still chose to give up thinking and told the news to Professor Dumbledore himself to make the decision. This itself represents Professor Dumbledore's attitude towards this matter. Escape. Don't worry about it for now. After a long time, Professor Dumbledore said, Hogwarts will soon have the end-of-year exams. When Harry graduates, the plan can start immediately. Everything will be decided after Voldemort is solved. Chapter 267 Reunion and Envy. Professor Dumbledore's escape plan finally collapsed. The reason was simple. Aberforth Dumbledore, who saw Ariana Dumbledore, wrote him a letter, and Professor Dumbledore couldn't hold it anymore. If it was just the younger version of him and Grindelwald, he could just pretend he didn't see them, didn't know the existence of these two people, and didn't explore why they appeared. But Ariana was different. That was the biggest pain in his life. Directly using apparition to the door of the Hog's Head, Professor Dumbledore stumbled in and saw Aberforth, his unkempt brother, dressed himself up so neatly for the first time in decades, sitting in front of a little girl. After his eyes fell on the girl's back for the first time, Professor Dumbledore could no longer look away. He would never forget this back, because the owner of the back had been deeply engraved in his mind, and he would even see it again in his dreams at midnight as his thoughts flew. Professor Dumbledore felt as if he had returned to that day, the day that changed his life. Aberforth held Ariana, who had lost her vital signs, in his arms. He could only stand in the distance and watch, and was scolded by Aberforth and dared not come forward. Aberforth noticed the arrival of Professor Dumbledore, but he did not say anything or move, and let Professor Dumbledore stand at the door. However, Ariana turned her head after hearing the movement. Hello, Ariana turned back and looked at Aberforth. Aberforth, don't you entertain guests? He is the only one I don't entertain here. Aberforth snorted coldly, and then said, and now the Hog's Head Inn no longer belongs to me, so of course I don't have to entertain guests anymore. No matter how Adam did it, he really brought Ariana back to life and even cured Ariana. Aberforth naturally wanted to repay him. Whether Adam needed it or not, this was his thanks as a negligent brother, because his original life was almost hopeless. Aberforth didn't save much money, and he didn't have any other precious things, but he heard that someone was buying the land of Hogsmeade Village during this period, and Adam might be able to exchange this bar for a large sum of money. Adam is buying Hogsmeade. Reed gladly accepted the gift back to the Hog's Head. Ariana blinked and felt that Aberforth's attitude was a bit strange. Looking back again, Ariana found that the other party looked a bit like Aberforth, and this complicated expression, Albus, Ariana's tone was a bit shocked and uncertain, no less than the first time she knew that the disheveled old man was Aberforth, not to mention the drama of brother and sister recognizing each other. Adam has been found by Professor Grindelwald, who has come to his senses. What's going on? This is the first time Grindelwald has behaved so badly since Adam met him. What's going on? There's nothing special about them, Professor Grindelwald. Don't you know them? Adam raised his eyebrows, but Grindelwald was in no mood to joke with him. How can I not know them myself? I'm asking where they are from. Seeing this, Adam stopped keeping the secret and told Professor Grindelwald about his trip to the past and bringing back Dumbledore, Grindelwald, and Ariana at that time. Although the young Dumbledore and the young Grindelwald were asked to hide their identities, it was fine to hide such things from others, But how could they be hidden from Professor Dumbledore and Professor Grindelwald themselves, then? How did I get here, Professor? Grindelwald fell into self-doubt. Grindelwald at that time was brought to the present, so the past is over, history cannot be changed, so what I brought back was Professor Dumbledore and you from the parallel world, Adam. Explained the parallel world to Professor Grindelwald again. Professor Grindelwald was in a trance when he heard this. Time travel and parallel worlds, is this really a power that can be controlled by magic? Then Professor Grindelwald felt a little complicated. That day not only changed Dumbledore's life, but also completely changed his life. If Ariana hadn't died that day, Grindelwald would have dared to think about it when he was dreaming, but such a possibility was standing in front of him alive. Professor Grindelwald clenched his fists. He actually felt jealous of himself after finally calming down his emotions. Grindelwald looked at Adam. So, you brought them to this era for, on the one hand, after learning about your story, I became curious, looking at Adam, who made a little bit gesture with his index finger and thumb. Professor Grindelwald was a little helpless, but he also knew that the difference between them was indeed obvious and it was difficult to hide it from each other. Besides that, the teaching staff at Hogwarts is still somewhat lacking at the top level. There are too few talents like you and Professor Dumbledore. Adam spread his hands. Who else can reach your level better than you when you were young? So I combined the two and brought them back. Then, why didn't you bring others? There should have been many powerful wizards in the past, right, Professor? Grindelwald was surprised and helpless. For example, the founder of Hogwarts, and Merlin and the like. Or you can directly find me and Professor Dumbledore in the parallel world, or yourself in the parallel world. In short, why do you have to bring a Dumbledore who can go to Happy End and him to mess with people's mentality? When he first saw the two of them, he almost exploded. Well, so there are actually quite a lot of candidates. If you really can't accept them, I can send them back and find someone else. Adam shrugged, and Professor Grindelwald closed his mouth again. Although his mentality was almost blown up, he had to say that for the young version of Dumbledore and himself in Eofline, he was more envious than jealous, and also blessed. He knew that it was impossible for him and Dumbledore in this world, even if Adam brought back in Ariana and told him that what happened back then was actually an illusion created by Adam, who went back to the past. But after so many years, what separated him and Dumbledore was no longer just that incident. It might be the best outcome to miss each other instead of meeting each other in this case. It might be nice to see that he and Dumbledore in the parallel world can live happily together smoothly. Chapter 268, Unmarried with a Baby. Adam enjoys watching the show, but time does not stop because of the stories that happen to people. Although he desperately wanted to continue to accompany Ariana, Professor Dumbledore did not forget his plan and rushed back to the Order of the Phoenix to implement his plan. When Hogwarts started summer vacation because of Ariana's appearance, Professor Dumbledore quietly changed his decision. Originally, he wanted to die in the battle with Voldemort, so that Voldemort could completely believe that he had mastered the ownership of the Elder Wand and became the most powerful wizard, so that he could deal with Harry without any defense. But now he changed my mind with Adam's permission. Ariana told him part of the story about time travel and learned about Ariana's origins. How could he let Ariana receive news of his death just after arriving at this time? Even for Ariana, he must live well. So after Voldemort hit Harry with a death curse, he was about to celebrate with his Death Eaters and enjoy the victory. Positioned as Professor Snape, Professor Dumbledore cut off Nagini with his sword as soon as he appeared. Gryffindor's sword, which has been soaked in basilisk venom for a day and a night, can be called poisonous enchantment plus 15. As long as you don't stick out your tongue to lick it, it is said to be good after use. Professor Snape took the opportunity to grab the unconscious Harry and activate the portkey. Voldemort, who was still immersed in joy just now, sensed that the connection between himself and the Horcrux was disconnected before he even had time to react. Although splitting his soul made his perception of Horcruxes extremely weak, now that all the Horcruxes were gone, how could he still be unaware of them? At this moment, great fear enveloped Voldemort. Voldemort, who had vowed to stay away from death, once again felt the approach of death, just like that day 18 years ago. Voldemort, you have lost all your Horcruxes, and now you are a mortal body that can be easily killed. Professor Dumbledore held Gryffindor's sword in one hand and the wand he once used in the other, and slowly walked towards Voldemort. The Death Eaters around him all pulled out their wands and looked at him warily, but they did not dare to step forward. Oh no, there are still people who dare to step forward. Avada Kedavra. The death curse released by Bellatrix was blocked by the ground raised by Professor Dumbledore waving his wand. The moment the rock was shattered by the curse, Professor Dumbledore sharpened the edges of the gravel and shot it. The next large group of Death Eaters fell down. Bellatrix was also hit on the arm, but she did not retreat at all. Instead, she tried to fight back more ferociously, but was stopped by Voldemort. "Stand back, this is a battle between me and him." Voldemort, who broke free from fear, looked gloomy, with only a few cracks remaining as facial features, revealing a horrifying expression. "Dumbledore, after losing the Elder Wand, you are no longer the strongest, but I am the most powerful wizard. So what if I don't have the Horcrux?" Voldemort has figured out that he can recreate the Horcrux once it is gone. Now that he has become the master of the Elder Wand, he can still defeat Dumbledore even without relying on the life-saving ability of the Horcrux. So Voldemort confidently held the Elder Wand and launched an offensive. Standard Fierce Fire cleared the way, and Voldemort controlled the Fierce Fire to sweep towards Dumbledore with one hand, and at the same time he raised the Elder Wand in his hand. Avada Kedavra, the green light penetrated the sea of fire composed of Fierce Fire. It was difficult for Professor Dumbledore to deform something to block the life-killing curse this time. It was impossible for almost anything to be able to sustain the life-killing curse in front of the strong fire. Bang! Suddenly, a ball of flame exploded in the air, and a big golden red bird jumped out from it. Ignoring the fierce fire around it, it hit the road of the death curse. After receiving the death curse, it was burned by the fierce fire. It turned into a ball of ashes and fell to the ground. What is that? Such thoughts flashed through Voldemort's mind, and the next moment he felt that the fire around him was a little out of control. Almost at the same time, Avada Kedavra, in the rising fire, Voldemort saw Dumbledore's eyes, which were colder than he had ever seen before and filled with the power to make the death curse indestructible. Murderous intent in the blink of an eye. The offensive and defensive changes were out of Voldemort's control. He never thought that Dumbledore would actually use an unforgivable curse like the death curse to deal with him. He thought he knew Dumbledore very well, but he didn't know that after relinquishing his duties as principal and seeing Adam's power, Professor Dumbledore's positioning of himself had changed. He is no longer a role model for all Hogwarts students, and a potentially dangerous person who will threaten the entire wizarding world if he loses control. Naturally, his restrictions on himself are no longer so strict, not to mention that Ariana is here this time. Professor Dumbledore will never allow himself to die in this battle. He has a reason to go back alive, so Professor Dumbledore used the death curse that he would never use originally. So Voldemort was hit by the death curse in shock and confusion. Without the Horcrux, Voldemort was just immortal, and people would die if they were killed. The death curse naturally took away his life. Voldemort, who had killed countless people with the killing curse in his life, and could almost be regarded as the spokesperson of the killing curse in the modern wizarding world, finally died under the killing curse. Adam watched this scene not far away, and neither the Death Eaters nor Professor Dumbledore were aware of his presence. "I wonder what you will feel when you know about your death in the future." While speaking, Adam looked down at the baby in his arms. The top wizards in the wizarding world today, apart from himself, are Dumbledore, Grindelwald and Voldemort. Adam found the young Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and naturally he would not let Voldemort go. It is said that Voldemort is cruel and extreme by nature, but Adam thinks that it should be the environmental factors that have a great influence on Voldemort's character. What kind of environment was the orphanage abroad in that era? I can only say that those who understand will understand. Adam believes that under the care of love and good education, people of any character can't be too bad. Whether it is Percy or Bernard, if they go astray, they will not be easy to deal with. But the love of the Wheeleyes and the Lancelots makes them have their own bottom line. Voldemort's life experience was crooked from the beginning, so Adam planned to raise him from scratch. Now he was holding a copy of the one at the door of the Woos orphanage. He couldn't be called Voldemort yet, but Tom Riddle. Little Tom looked smart and was very worry-free. He didn't cry or make noises. He basically didn't make any noise except when he was hungry or had a bowel movement. This made Adam, who became a dad before getting married, feel very accomplished. Of course, the main person who took care of little Tom was a very experienced house elf. Adam focused on a sense of participation in the process. In front, there were Professor Dumbledore and Professor Grindelwald, and then there were the young versions of Professor Dumbledore and Professor Grindelwald, and then there was you. It's been more than 100 years. It should be enough to support Hogwarts to get on the right track and cultivate new top wizards, right, Adam? Estimated that after being a hands-off shopkeeper for more than 100 years, he could completely let go. Chapter 269, The Minister of Magic welcomes the Royal Master. Seeing Voldemort fall to the ground after being hit by the killing curse, the Death Eaters around him felt not fear or excitement, but a sense of unreality. They had encountered such a situation once before, when almost everyone thought Voldemort was dead, but the result was that Voldemort returned again decades later. Out of fear of Voldemort, the Death Eaters remained alert to Dumbledore. Professor Dumbledore frowned slightly, raised his wand and prepared to fight back. Just at this moment, Expelliarmus, a series of crackling sounds rang out, and a large group of wizards appeared in the distance, attacking the Death Eaters. As soon as they appeared, Voldemort is dead. Look at your dark mark, the leading wizard shouted, and the already panicked Death Eaters immediately fell into a more chaotic situation. The 3 sets of disarming spells, stunning spells, and binding spells were used together. Surrounded by well-trained wizards, the Death Eaters in poor condition were quickly captured one by one. Lauren. Crowell. After a moment of daze, Professor Dumbledore found an acquaintance among the wizards, and then understood something. He sighed and put away his wand and sword. Dumbledore, long time no see, MRS. Lauren nodded to Professor Dumbledore. You have saved the wizarding world again. Hearing this, a trace of bitterness appeared on Professor Dumbledore's face, but it was only a flash, and then he spoke naturally. Did Adam tell you to come at this time? Of course he could see who the real owner behind the newly emerged camp was. He had learned before that there seemed to be Adams undercover among the Death Eaters. Now these people can time it so accurately. Obviously someone has tipped off. Mrs. Lawrence smiled but said nothing, and Professor Dumbledore did not get to the bottom of it, but changed the question. Now that Voldemort is dead, what is Adam going to do next? While talking, the Death Eaters had been captured almost because the disappearance of the Dark Mark was confirmed. Everyone knew that Voldemort was really dead. Except for a very few Voldemort loyalists, the remaining Death Eaters chose to surrender very straightforwardly anyway. This is not the first time. Basically, they are very familiar with the whole process. As long as they surrender, they can be safely taken to the Ministry of Magic, and then claim that they are under the control of Voldemort's imperious curse and that they are also victims. If everything goes well, they can proceed to the last step in a few days. They are deeply saddened by the damage they have caused to the wizarding world during their control, and are willing to donate a large amount of funds to the Ministry of Magic for the reconstruction of the wizarding world. Most Death Eaters have never doubted this. After all, they control a large number of industries in the wizarding world, and the wizarding world cannot do without them. It's not what Adam is going to do, but what we are going to do. Hearing Professor Dumbledore's question, Mrs. Lawrence's eyes flashed. We will replace the Ministry of Magic and establish a new order. The corrupt Ministry of Magic in the past will never return. An older Death Eater took out a few gold galleons from his pocket and handed them to the wizard who was about to tie him up, wanting to make himself more comfortable on the way to the Ministry of Magic, but was knocked down neatly by a stunning spell. Professor Dumbledore saw this scene and drooped his eyelids. It was because Mrs. Lawrence was too upright that she retired early in her tenure. Otherwise, at her age, even if she wanted to retire, it should have been a few years ago. Professor Dumbledore glanced at the Death Eaters who were not panicked when they were taken away from Mrs. Lawrence's words and the scene he just saw. He was almost certain that the fate of these Death Eaters would not be very good. In this way, the wizarding world would undoubtedly suffer from severe turmoil, and many people would probably die. But knowing this, does he have to stop it? Those Death Eaters whose hands are stained with the blood of innocent people, can they escape the trial by paying a little money? With a sigh, Professor Dumbledore was about to leave. Dumbledore, don't you want to go with me? No, Lauren, I'm too old and too tired. The world that comes next belongs to the young, Professor. Dumbledore took a last look at Eugene, who was organizing the escort of the prisoners, and then paraded away without hesitation. As the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. He is too tired. Voldemort is finally dead. He doesn't plan to think about more things and make trouble for himself now. He's a retired old man over 100 years old. His last wish in life is to spend the last period of his life with his sister. He wants nothing else. Mrs. Lawrence glanced at the place where Professor Dumbledore was before he left. Are you tired? It's a pity that I don't think that Adam will let you retire peacefully. After saying that, Mrs. Lawrence didn't think too much and walked forward and said, Are we going directly to the Ministry of Magic now? Well, it should have been resolved there. Eugene turned around and nodded, then looked into the distance with a puzzled look on his face. Where is Professor Dumbledore? He went back first, saying he was tired. MRS. Lauren explained briefly, then frowned. I remember everyone is here. Does Adam have someone in the Ministry of Magic? And they were able to directly deal with the people from the Ministry of Magic without Eugene providing support. I think their status and number are not low. Mrs. Lauren also thought that there were people among the Death Eaters who could help Adam tip off. Adam seemed to be very clear about the movements of the Order of the Phoenix. That's right, Adam has succeeded Dumbledore as the headmaster of Hogwarts. Thinking about it, among the forces that have been fighting in the British wizarding world for several years, how come Adam has people on all sides? When they arrived at the Ministry of Magic, Eugene and his friends were surprised to find that the person who controlled the situation at the Ministry of Magic was Percy. After Voldemort's death, Pierce's thickness immediately showed obvious abnormalities. With his cooperation and identification, under Percy's command, everyone who was originally dissatisfied with the Ministry of Magic's constant compromise with Voldemort quickly controlled the pro-Death Eater elements in the Ministry of Magic. Pierce Thickness knew clearly that he was indeed under the control of the Imperious Curse. As long as he cooperated with the investigation honestly, he basically didn't have to bear any responsibility. At most, he would be labeled incompetent. Now that Voldemort is dead, he cooperated with the identification to show that he always had a heart for justice, which was a bright and smooth road. Otherwise, would he rebel with those Death Eaters who were not united and had their own ulterior motives? Therefore, in this team welcoming the King's Master, you can even see the Minister of Magic. You are finally here, Percy greeted with a warm smile and looked at Eugene inconspicuously. Although he had always heard of the other party's name during this period, it seemed that this was the first time he had really met Eugene since he graduated from Hogwarts. This is his future boss. Oh, no, the boss seems to be Adam, which can only be said to be the boss in public. It must be said that Percy had a clear view of the situation. When he met with Adam, he could clearly find that Adam was the one who really controlled the situation. Chapter 270 Albus Dumbledore, I will never regret it. Because of his early preparations and the active cooperation of the former Minister of Magic on the Ministry of Magic's side, Eugene became the interim Minister of Magic very smoothly. Everyone knows that the word temporary is really just temporary. It was added because of the current complicated situation, and it was not convenient for Eugene to seize power immediately. It will be removed when the dust settles, but no one had any objection to this. In the previous confrontation with the Ministry of Magic, even those on the Ministry of Magic's side had to admit that Eugene was indeed a charismatic leader, especially in comparison with the precedent set by 3 successive Ministers of Magic. Fudge is the worst. Now both his person and his reputation are stinking, and they have been stinking for several years. Although Scrimgeour did not stretch his hips too much during his tenure, his reputation was very bad during Pierce's administration because he actively targeted Death Eaters. Not to mention Pierce, according to his own account, he was completely under the control of Voldemort's Imperious Curse during his reign. Although considering Voldemort's strength, he cannot be completely blamed, but it is obvious that he cannot take off the label of incompetence dropped. In contrast, Eugene, who led a group of neighbors to slowly build an organized and well-trained camp, and was once able to compete with the magic department and fight back against the Death Eaters, was simply a divine weapon descended from heaven. It pales in comparison to the previous 3 Ministers of Magic. As the saying goes, the person who knows you best is often your opponent. The members of the Ministry of Magic who are not locked up now look at Eugene, their eyes are basically filled with admiration, and they support him with both hands and feet in taking over the Ministry of Magic. Eugene did not live up to their expectations. The first thing he did when he took office was not to rush to try those criminals to show his merits, but to organize people to clean up the turmoil in the British wizarding world, under the leadership of Voldemort. The dark wizards and dark creatures who usually hide took advantage of this opportunity to come out to cause trouble. These guys in front of them have caused a large number of injuries and property losses. Previously, due to the existence of Voldemort, all parties there is no extra energy to deal with them. In an understatement, he attributed the Ministry of Magic's original situation, which could be considered half of Voldemort's power, to the lack of extra energy. Eugene sat at the front of the conference room, his young face showing only familiarity when facing the number of subordinates who were several times more than before. Their rampage is not entirely a bad thing now that Voldemort has been defeated. At least they have come out of the shadows and are still unclear about the current situation of Voldemort and the Death Eaters. This has created good conditions for us. Now it is us a good chance to catch them all in one fell swoop. The opportunity must not be missed. The aura is set out now. focusing on the main wizard gathering places to clean up the dark wizards and dark creatures who took advantage of the chaos to cause trouble before setting off. Eugene warned, in principle, you should use disarming spells and stun spells during the operation, but remember to put your own safety first. What you have to face are the most fringe dark wizards and dark creatures. Take action when it is really necessary. Don't hesitate. Although most of the original Auror team was arrested under the identification of Pierce Thickness, with the addition of armed personnel from the original Eugene camp, both the number and average combat effectiveness of the current Auror team have soared, and they all have a heart. Justice Eugene's decision was undoubtedly perfectly in line with their image of the Minister of Magic, who was supposed to be just and kind-hearted and considerate of all wizards. So the Aurors were fully mobilized. After the meeting, Eugene came to the office of the Minister of Magic, where Bernard was already waiting. This is the legal provision I drafted before. Take a look. Why not just judge those sinners? Of course, this is because now is a good time to clean up those dark wizards and dark creatures. In addition, of course, there is also the reason why they are dissatisfied with the previous legal provisions and plan to change them to new ones. The previous legal provisions contained a large number of loopholes left by high-ranking officials and wealthy people in order to exonerate themselves. Of course, it was impossible for them to use these things to judge them. What? Can the newly promulgated law not be able to try crimes committed before the promulgation of the law? This is a new dynasty. How can we still use the sword of the previous dynasty to kill people, and the Muggle laws have less control over wizard matters? Eugene opened the legal article and glanced at it for a few times, then quickly closed it and shook his dizzy head. Forget it. Forget it. What you wrote is too convoluted and I can't understand it. Has Adam read it? I've seen it. It perfectly meets the 3 requirements Adam mentioned at that time. Fair. Fair. It's still fair as MF. Bernard was not surprised by Eugene's attitude. The formulation of laws needs to be accurate, and every word needs to be carefully considered. The final product is indeed not very friendly to wizards who generally lack logical abilities. Bernard's simple and direct expression made Eugene understand the central idea of this law at once. If Adam thinks it's okay, then it's okay. Bernard is professional, Adam is reliable, and Eugene feels that the legal provisions that they both agree with are at least much more reliable than the Ministry of Magic's previous ones. There will be a meeting in the afternoon to make public the laws and regulations. They will be implemented tomorrow and the trial will begin the day after tomorrow. The Ministry of Magic's side was in full swing, but Professor Dumbledore's side was much cleaner. Professor Dumbledore felt extremely relaxed now that he had finally let go of the burden he had carried for so many years. He just wanted to return home to reunite with his sister and repair the relationship with his brother that had been stiff for so many years. As a result, as soon as Professor Dumbledore entered the door, he saw his sister and Adam chatting happily. Professor Dumbledore, congratulations on finally defeating Voldemort. Adam's eyes lit up when he saw Professor Dumbledore opening the door and walking in. For some reason, Professor Dumbledore felt a chill in his back. Ahem, there's no need to call me Professor anymore. I'm no longer a professor now. Oh? Really? Professor Dumbledore really doesn't think about returning to teach at Hogwarts. Adam looked at Professor Dumbledore with a smile. Next, I plan to open an education level above the original 7th grade at Hogwarts to provide wizards with more advanced knowledge and a platform for academic research. You don't have to say anything, I've already made my decision. Adam's words did not surprise Professor Dumbledore too much. Adam had previously expressed his ideals and wanted to increase the power of the wizarding world as a whole. Educational reform was the most fundamental solution. Oh? Don't you regret it? I will never regret it. Adam turned to look at Ariana. There is no other way. As you can see, your brother doesn't agree to return to Hogwarts to be a professor, so he can't be your teacher, Professor Dumbledore? But you don't have to worry. Professor Grindelwald will take good care of you after you enroll. He will be the vice principal in charge of basic education for the next 7 years. Wait, Ariana enrolls in school? What's going on, Professor Dumbledore asked in shock. Do you still need to ask? Now that there is no obscurus in Ariana's body, her personality can be contacted by outsiders. Of course she has to go to school. Aberforth happened to come down from the 2nd floor and heard Professor Dumbledore's question without politeness before Professor Dumbledore could react. Adam continued to Ariana. Professor Grindelwald happened to be a professor of defense against the dark arts after you graduated from 7th grade. If you want to finish your undergraduate degree, you can take his postgraduate entrance examination or study for his PhD. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271. The day after Voldemort left, I miss him. Ariana looked at Professor Dumbledore and sighed in a serious manner. That can't be helped. I think it's not bad for Professor Grindelwald to be my professor, although her death in history was more or less related to Grindelwald. The point is that she didn't die, and after being treated by Adam, a psychiatrist, Ariana has let go of many things in the past. Wait a minute, Professor. Dumbledore was stunned. He didn't expect Adam to resort to such an unethical trick when his invitation failed. Yes, he could see that Ariana was joking, otherwise Aberforth would never be so calm now, and he was also relieved that Ariana could joke now, but these words were the premise of a joke, that he would really return to Hogwarts as a professor. So would he not go to Hogwarts to let this joke fail, and let Ariana go to Grindelwald's class like this, as an adult who is responsible for what he said? Of course he would. Oh, I know, I will go back to Hogwarts, if he really refused and let Ariana go to Hogwarts. Although he was confident that Grindelwald would not do anything and Adam would not allow it, Aberforth might fight him to the death. A broken brotherhood for so many years was finally repaired because of Ariana's return, and Professor Dumbledore did not want to lose it again. He was over 100 years old, and there was not much left. Professor Dumbledore sighed. So, what course should I teach after I return to Hogwarts? You won't let me go back to be the principal, right, principal? If you want, it's not impossible. For some reason, a picture appeared in Adam's mind. Professor Grindelwald, Dumbledore, I want XXXX, Professor. Dumbledore, no, Professor. Grindelwald, Dumbledore, you will regret it, Professor. Dumbledore, Grindelwald, I am the principal. Adam's expression was a little subtle, and he quickly deleted the picture in his mind. As far as he is concerned, he is now the largest and only financial backer of Hogwarts. Even if he resigns as the principal, he can still influence Hogwarts in other ways, not to mention that his influence on the wizarding world now includes all aspects. For example, the Ministry of Magic, which was deeply influenced by Voldemort and has now undergone a major change, such as various industries that have a lot of vacancies under Voldemort's purge, such as Hogsmeade Village and Diagon Alley, which were acquired by Adam because of Voldemort's sharp drop in price. Alice, the day after Voldemort left, I miss him. Not knowing Adam's thoughts, Professor Dumbledore shook his head. Forget it, I'm old and not suitable for a position like the headmaster. I heard that Hogwarts will add professors to each course. So why don't I teach Transfiguration? In this way, he can return to his old job, and he is proficient in the business. In addition, there are other Transfiguration professors to share the work, which should be relatively easy. Adam couldn't help but raise his eyebrows after hearing what Professor Dumbledore said. Transfiguration professor? I have no objection, but, are you sure? As the main course of Hogwarts, the position of Transfiguration professor is not easy at all, otherwise why would Hogwarts need more Transfiguration professors? Professor. Dumbledore frowned, and suddenly had an ominous premonition, and asked, what is Grindelwald's position? I almost forgot about this, and I really need to ask this clearly, so that Grindelwald won't become his boss. He is the professor of defense against the dark arts. Then, I'm sure, I will be the Transfiguration professor. Professor Dumbledore, who didn't know what he would face next, waved his hand. He was more than 100 years old and had been teaching at Hogwarts for most of his life. What had he not seen? Seeing this, Adam stopped persuading him, and discussed with Professor Dumbledore what Professor Dumbledore would do next. Professor Dumbledore's next position is called the head of the Transfiguration Teaching and Research Group, which is mainly responsible for managing all Transfiguration professors, as well as organizing and leading the teaching of Transfiguration during this period. Professor Dumbledore's hidden task is to train a new head of the Teaching and Research Group who can take over his class, so that he can be promoted to Professor of Higher Education after Ariana completes 7 years of basic education and goes to higher education, and continue to teach Ariana. Remind you, Professor Grindelwald has 1 more year advantage than you in training successors. Apart from the special case of divination, the Defense Against the Dark Arts textbook is the first course to have multiple professors participate in teaching, and the successor of Professor Grindelwald in Adam's mouth, Lucius Malfoy. I am just an untalented person. I have to say that although this guy has wasted a lot of skills because of his extravagant life before, according to Professor Grindelwald, his talent is actually very good after a year of Grindelwald's incidental teaching. Lucius is obviously ahead of those new transfiguration professors introduced by Professor McGonagall on the road to becoming the head of the teaching and research group, especially starting from the next semester. After seeing the results of his former colleagues being tried one by one can imagine how motivated Professor Lucius will be. Professor Dumbledore's eyes flickered slightly when he heard this. 1 year is not enough to make a difference. His hidden mission only said that he had to train a successor, and he did not have to compete with Grindelwald in speed, but he still fell into Adam's language trap very smoothly. Adam nodded. When he returned to Hogwarts, he would go to stir up Professor Grindelwald's fire. The efficiency of the two would definitely be maximized. Right after leaving Dumbledore's house, Adam went directly to Grindelwald, and the effect was really outstanding. Just as Adam was lying in a rocking chair with his IOK and SPI in his arms, enjoying a quiet afternoon tea time with a book in his hand, lamenting that now the work is basically thrown away and the future is bright, an owl fluttered its wings and landed on the windowsill. Well, it's Eugene's owl. It seems that something happened, otherwise Eugene would not use an owl to contact him. Adam couldn't help but pat his mouth lightly. His mouth. Is it true that people who are close to ink are black? Fortunately, it shouldn't be that urgent, otherwise Eugene wouldn't have used an owl, but would have come to him directly through the Flu network, taking the letter off the owl's feed and stuffing a few pieces of dried meat into it. Adam opened the envelope and looked at it. Frowning, Eugene didn't write anything in the letter, just asked him to go to the Ministry of Magic to find him. Why is Eugene now starting to riddle people who taught him bad things? He didn't say much, just asked him to go to the Ministry of Magic. If the handwriting of this letter and the owl were not indeed Eugene's, and now all the wizards who were capable of jumping have been solved, he would have thought it was some kind of clumsy trap for him. Forget it, let's go and see what happened. Chapter 272. It's been so many years, and you're still digging? Adam paraded to the Minister of Magic's office and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Eugene burying his head in the pile of documents, looking completely normal. What happened? Since nothing happened to Eugene, and obviously nothing happened to Bernard, there was no need to be so anxious. Ah, you came so quickly. Eugene was stunned and raised his head to look at Adam. After a few seconds, he remembered what was going on. He picked up the document at hand and handed it to Adam. Look at this. What should you do? Huh? You can just decide for yourself if there is anything you want to do. Why do you have to show it to me? Adam opened the file, and the first thing that caught his attention was a picture that occupied almost half of the paper. The scene on the picture made him feel a little familiar. This pit. I seem to have seen it somewhere. With Adam's current ability, the past memories will not fade at all under the erosion of time, and the forgotten memories will become clear again, and he soon found the memory corresponding to the big pit, remnants of the Hanging Garden. Adam suddenly realized that he had never thought of it before. It's not that he forgot, but he ignored it. After all, in his impression, this happened several years ago, so it should have been resolved, right? But this document, how many years have passed and the ruins are still being excavated? Adam flipped through it from beginning to end, closed the file with a complicated expression, and put it on the desktop. So, the current exploration level of the ruins by the Ministry of Magic is 0, and the people sent out before have been trapped in the Hanging Garden ruins for several years. All the Ministry of Magic all over the world do this. Even the last batch of people who entered with the Ministry of Magic in France and Germany have not been heard from for more than 2 years, and the previous people have not sent back any news. Eugene was also a little helpless. Compared to Adam, he really forgot about this thing. After all, his attention was on his parents and Adam at the time. If the person who came to him with this document had not explained to him that he had no idea that he could know the ruins of the Hanging Garden, he would not have been able to remember it. So, what are we going to do now? They want you to save people. The corner of Adam's mouth twitched. How many years have passed without any news coming back? It's such a dangerous place. How can I save someone? That's not true. For those who entered the ruins of the Hanging Garden, the Ministry of Magic has already acquiesced that all of them were killed. Eugene shook his head. Even if his parents were trapped inside for 2 years, he would not have any hope. Besides, to the Ministry of Magic, those people were just colleagues and subordinates. Then, They came to you with this document. Let me decide the Ministry of Magic's next attitude towards the ruins of the Hanging Gardens. Eugene spread his hands. Although the ruins of the Hanging Garden have now become a treasure that only eats people in the eyes of the Ministry of Magic of various countries, no one has benefited from it. Eugene swallowed as he spoke. The oarfish from the ruins of the Hanging Gardens tasted really good when fried and stir-fried, and it was also a huge fish. Let's eat stir-fried royal hairtail tonight, okay? Eugene responded subconsciously and was stunned. How did Adam know what he was thinking? But Adam seemed to be able to tell what they wanted to eat every time, so that was fine without thinking any more. Eugene continued, although it is generally believed that no one has benefited from the ruins, cannibal treasures are also treasures, and everyone obviously does not want others to benefit. Therefore, the Ministry of Magic of various countries is still stationed near the ruins of the Hanging Garden. It is frustrating to have no harvest, but it would be really sad if the Ministry of Magic of other countries had gained something. With this idea in mind, the people sent by the Ministry of Magic of various countries have never come back. The most representative one is probably the Magical Congress of the United States of America. The chairman and his elite are stationed there, keeping an eye on who might get the treasures in the ruins, but stationing there is obviously an expense, not to mention the material consumption of those personnel, who are originally official employees of the Ministry of Magic. Forget about the previous Ministry of Magic, but now that the Ministry of Magic has gone through a round of cleaning, there are a lot of staff vacancies. Eugene's manpower can still only fill about 30 to 40% of the vacancies. If they are called back, the current manpower pressure of the department can be greatly relieved. Adam fell into thinking. Originally, he wanted to just call him back. He would spend money and gain nothing by staying there. What if other forces really got the treasure? Could they be stronger than him? But after hearing what Eugene said later, he hesitated again. Now Eugene can maintain his absolute rule over the Ministry of Magic because the current staff of the Ministry of Magic is mainly composed of the camp members originally led by Eugene, plus the remaining members of the Ministry of Magic, employees who have nothing to do with Voldemort's forces. The former were screened by both the Ministry of Magic and the Death Eaters, and the remaining ones were basically people who had complete trust in Eugene. The latter almost never occupies a high position in the Ministry of Magic. Therefore, it escaped corruption and destruction when the entire magical tribe came under Voldemort's control. At the same time, it also had a considerable impact on Eugene in the previous confrontation with him. But the Ministry of Magic employees stationed next to the ruins of the Sky Gardens are different. They may not even know that so many changes have taken place in the Ministry of Magic, and they have no basis for trust in Eugene. At that time, Eugene's ruling power over the Ministry of Magic may decline. This will not help Eugene's plan to establish a new system in the future, but will interfere with it. Although Adam can directly suppress the invincible world, he must have a legitimate reason. At the same time, it is better for Eugene to maintain a relatively glorious image. If possible, it is best not to leave serious stains during the ruling process. Sure enough, Eugene talked about this matter next. The idea he and Bernard initially discussed was to call people back after everything was settled. I called you here to tell you about this matter on the one hand, and on the other hand, I want to understand whether our recall of people will cause any serious consequences. If so, we will not call them back. Eugene knew that Adam's going to the ruins of the Sky Gardens was similar to going to the back garden at that time, but he didn't know whether Adam was trying to be strong to reassure him at that time, and he didn't know what was in the ruins of the Sky Gardens. Adam didn't go there to explore the ruins at that time. If there is something really extraordinary in the ruins of the Hanging Gardens, then the Ministry of Magic station personnel do not have to be called back. Well, I really don't know what is in the ruins of the Hanging Gardens. I'll go ask later. Adam remembered that Professor Dumbledore seemed to know something about the ruins of the Hanging Gardens. As for whether it will cause serious consequences, don't worry. No matter what is inside and who gets it, I can solve it. Adam's words were arrogant, but Eugene only felt a sense of security after hearing them. Then it's decided. Chapter 273 Ministry of Magic Meeting. No wonder Eugene trusted Adam so unconditionally. After all, that was how Adam brought back his parents who were trapped in the ruins of the Hanging Garden. In fact, there is one thing that Eugene has never told Adam. That is, during the vacation when he came home after his parents were rescued, Mrs. Lauren told him about his parents. All things Mrs. Lauren can allow her grandson to have illusions when his parents do not come back, but after her son and daughter-in-law come back, She does not want her grandson to live in self-deception. Lies are lies after all. If you indulge in false beauty, you will become weak when facing the cruel truth. Of course, there is no conflict between letting Eugene know the truth and breaking the legs of his son and daughter-in-law if they dare to run away. Mrs. Lauren believes that they can develop a real relationship between father and son and mother and son after spending a long time together, and if Eugene can't bear the cruel truth, then Mrs. Lauren will not force him to accept it. It is not difficult for the former Aurora office director to forget everything. She also has the confidence to keep the scenes of her son and daughter-in-law hidden. Fortunately, Eugene did not disappoint her in the end. After understanding his parents' attitude towards him, Eugene was just disappointed for a while, and then with a sigh of regret, he asked Mrs. Lauren to let go of her parents and let them pursue their true love. The dream of love. He thanked his grandma for believing that he was strong enough inside, and thanked Adam for everything he had done to protect his fantasy, but he would make his own choices. Eugene is indeed stronger than he thought. Standing in front of Eugene, Adam couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although he had no intention of prying into his brother's memories, Eugene recalling these things in front of him was equivalent to putting these memories directly in front of him for him to see without showing that he knew these things that he shouldn't know. Adam casually asked Eugene about their current progress. Well, although it has only gone as far as clearing out the dark wizards and dark creatures, it can be said to be quite gratifying. Especially with some of the problems that have arisen in the process. For example, some dark creatures with high intelligence, such as vampires, when faced with arrest by the Ministry of Magic, actually asked the Ministry of Magic to judge their crimes as human beings instead of directly exterminating them. These guys know that there is no death penalty in the British Ministry of Magic, and now that the Dementors have followed Voldemort to cause chaos, it is impossible for Azkaban to continue to employ Dementors as jailers. Azkaban without the Dementors is just a small room with room and board for them, especially vampires, who are serving a sentence of several decades for just a sleep. It's a pity that these guys have some culture but not much, and they don't know that the laws of the Ministry of Magic have been changed. There are indeed no Dementors in Azkaban now, but there's Bernard. How to put it? Regarding those guys who go to jail after committing crimes, Adam feels that the two actually have their own merits and are indistinguishable. Not mentioning this, there is actually one thing that I overthink about dark creatures such as vampires, that is, even if they are magical animals classified as beasts, they may have to accept trial from the Ministry of Magic. Eugene was dealing with these documents, talking to Adam and planning to go to the conference room. Can I sit in? Of course, it's up to you. Eugene shrugged his shoulders and took the lead in pushing open the door and walking towards the conference room. When he arrived at the conference room, Eugene found that Adam had changed a chair in the corner and sat down directly, while everyone who came after him ignored him. After everyone gathered, Eugene asked his deputy to hand out the documents, while he couldn't help but sigh that Adam's illusion skills were getting better and better. It's not magic, it's psychology. Eugene's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't look back when he heard the voice coming from behind. Just like just now, your attention was on those documents, so you didn't see me getting up from my seat and walking behind you. I slightly adjusted the effect so that they wouldn't notice me. As Adam spoke, he walked around the conference table, which was almost full of people, and stretched out his fingers from time to time. This guy is not very loyal to you, but it doesn't matter. He is just a wallflower. He will listen to whoever is the Minister of Magic. This guy wants you to call back the people next to the Hanging Garden ruins as soon as possible, and seek opportunities for promotion after muddying the waters. Find an opportunity for him to go on a business trip to the African savannah. Oh, this guy, well, it's nothing, it's just that he has a crush on you. Puff. Eugene regretted a little bit that he used the action of drinking water to cover up his expression after hearing Adam's comment. For a moment, everyone in the conference room looked up at Eugene. Ahem, I'm fine. Keep reading. We will try to resolve all issues at this meeting. Eugene beat his chest and finally managed to calm down his breath. Why are you so excited? After looking around, there are quite a few people who have a crush on you. Adam casually clicked on two more witches, which made Eugene's eyes twitch hard. Don't you want to think about this so early? Okay, I'll go to the corner and listen to your meeting. Adam picked up a cup of tea and sat down in the corner. He took a sip and was silent for 2 seconds. He wondered how many tea leaves had been put in the teapot to make the tea so astringent, and then changed the tea into milk tea. Well, this is what people drink. Eugene couldn't help but wonder to what extent Adam's slight adjustment was adjusted to make so many people turn a blind eye to what he did and said. However, The meeting that was about to start made it impossible for Eugene to think more. Time is tight, so I won't say much. Let's go straight to the first topic. The Ministry of Magic's previous definition of biological classification needs to be redefined. After Eugene finished speaking, many people in the conference room raised their hands. Speak. One by one, starting with you, Eugene pointed to the first person who raised his hand on his left. Mr. Minister, we can understand your idea of raising this issue at this meeting. You probably want to say that some magical animals that we now classify as people have not assumed the corresponding responsibilities. The man waved the documents in his hand, which contained records of this cleanup operation and previous arrests of Voldemort's dark creatures, but I have to remind you that it is very difficult to make a racial presumption of guilt for these highly intelligent creatures. The Ministry of Magic defines human as a creature that has enough intelligence to understand the laws of the magical society and bears some of the responsibilities in the process of formulating these laws. The condition for classifying a magical animal as a beast is to prove that the creature has no ability to overcome its brutal nature at the racial level. As for how to prove it, inquiry plus test. On the one hand, ask the other party's subjective will, and on the other hand, see if the other party can restrain the desire to prey on humans by themselves. The Ministry of Magic's previous method was so simple and crude, and there was no other way to convince everyone, since the Ministry of Magic has completely different attitudes and methods towards humans and beasts. Most magical animals with sufficient intelligence will naturally want to be classified as humans so that they can restrain their desire to eat humans during the test. As for normal times, of course, it depends on the situation. Chapter 274, Eugene and number 039, S. Conspiracy. Based on this, the documents given by Eugene are not enough to prove that those magical animals are beasts that have not overcome their ferocious nature. In fact, they do have the ability to overcome their nature, but they just don't want to do so under certain conditions. This is evil from the subjective will of an individual, and it is difficult to extend it to the entire race through objective proof. Just like those dark creatures who were arrested, others who were not arrested can just say they are just the bad part of the race and cannot represent them all. That's a very objective statement, sir, but what I want to do is not classify them as beasts. Eugene's words made the man couldn't help but wonder. There are only 4 types of creatures classified by the Ministry of Magic: man, beast, spirit, non-existence. Kick those creatures out of people without classifying them as beasts. Mr. Minister, do you want to? He couldn't help but swallowed. Slaughter them all. It is impossible for those magical animals to become non-existence, so the only remaining possibility is to kill them all and see if they can be turned into spirits. Eugene couldn't help but be stunned for a moment when he said this, and then quickly explained, it's not that, it's about fundamentally changing the current rules for the classification of living things by the Ministry of Magic. Please read the last part of the document on the first issue. There is a thick stack of documents, and of course it is impossible for everyone to read every one of them before the meeting begins. They scan the outline first and then go to the specific points. After Eugene finished speaking, the sound of turning pages suddenly sounded in the conference room. 9 square. Grid division. A voice sounded, and the owner of the voice frowned subconsciously. Oh my god, it took hundreds of years for the 4 categories of the Ministry of Magic to be finally finalized. When will the 9 categories be resolved? It's a very novel idea to classify living things according to their positions of good and evil. If it succeeds, it will indeed be much better than the current classification method. The current director of the Department for the Management and Control of Magical Creatures, and one of the witches that Adam just named as having a crush on Eugene, said, but then she looked at Eugene and shook her head. But Mr. Minister, have you ever considered how we can judge each other's good and evil stance? This is back to the unreliable testing method used by the Ministry of Magic, doesn't the Ministry of Magic know that the testing method is ridiculous and idiotic? Of course they know, but the problem was that the issue of biological classification had been debated for hundreds of years at that time. It was difficult to find a method that could reach preliminary agreement on all aspects. Even if the debate continued, it had to be completed first. Don't worry about this, everyone. What we want is an absolutely objective stance on the good and evil of this species, so I will use some external forces to achieve this goal. Foreign object, could it be? Do you want to use Veritaserum? Said the witch in surprise. This idea sounds a bit absurd at first, because truth serum will have some negative effects on the user, but if Eugene really insists, it's not impossible. If the Ministry of Magic did this kind of thing before, the Ministry of Magic would definitely be attacked by a group of people. Not to mention the pressure from magical animals. This was never what the Ministry of Magic considered. The main reason was the pressure from within the wizards. After all, there's always that overfed wizard who thinks about protecting the rights of other species every day before protecting the rights of his own kind. The Ministry of Magic needs to maintain light and justice, at least in name, so there is really no good solution for them, and it would at least be a mistake to take action. But things are different now. A large number of dark creatures followed Voldemort to resist the rule of the Ministry of Magic and disrupt the order of the wizarding world. For this reason, the Ministry of Magic uses Veritaserum on magical animals. Although there will definitely be objections, at least they have their own reasons, and it is not a one-sided injustice. Veritaserum is indeed an option, but the Ministry of Magic also has other options for those who do not want to suffer negative consequences and are willing to cooperate with the Ministry of Magic for testing. While speaking, Eugene glanced in Adam's direction, then snapped his fingers, and the deputy waiting aside brought up a golden scale. What's this? The legendary artifact from Egypt, the Scales of Anubis. It can take out the subject's heart without harming the subject. If the subject does not lie during the whole process, he will be safe, but if he lies during the process. In the middle of what Eugene said, there was a loud swallowing sound in the conference room. How many people can remain calm in the face of something like this, where they either speak out their truest thoughts or tear out their hearts? Mr. Minister, is the origin of this artifact credible? An older director asked while wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. The only son of the current Egyptian Minister of Magic studied at Hogwarts for some special reasons and lived in the same dormitory as me, Eugene explained. Not everyone knows the special characteristics of the Egyptian Ministry of Magic, but everyone soon understood it with the help of insiders. This is something that the next Egyptian Minister of Magic has brought out. It is backed by the reputation of a country's Ministry of Magic. Regardless of how credible it is, at least no one can question it at will without evidence. Seeing everyone fall silent, Eugene smiled slightly. So, do you still have questions about this topic? Everyone shook their heads in unison. Apart from the horror brought by Anubis's scale, Eugene's topic is indeed very feasible and has a very good effect after success. First, they looked at the biological division method of the 9-square grid. The biological division is based on the moral values of good and evil. There may be differences between different individuals of the same race, but being able to roughly define it can be of great help. The second is the test of the moral values of good and evil. Eugene stated in the document that a series of questions will be used to divide the test results of a large number of individuals of the same race. The only problem is how to make the tester tell the truth. The two options Eugene gave were simply the most open and above-board conspiracy. First, give a truth serum, which can be said to be in the right place in the current situation, and completely ignore those opposing voices, all for the stability of the wizarding world. And for those who think that truth serum will cause harm to the body, if it can be done without harming the body, then I will definitely cooperate. Eugene took out the Libra of Anubis. Indeed, this side effect is much more severe than the truth serum, and it is directly fatal. But aren't you cooperating? Since you cooperate, why are you afraid that I will use the Libra of Anubis? Especially Eugene's sentence on the document, which is a direct killer. The Libra of Anubis will be controlled by Eugene alone throughout the process, and Eugene is willing to make a magic oath. This sentence puts an end to the final doubts about Eugene personally, indicating that Eugene has no selfish motives in the process. In this case, those who still oppose are the enemies of the Ministry of Magic. Chapter 275. Bernard, the New Azkaban is a warm and sunny place. Due to the ability Eugene showed in the first topic, the next two topics also reached a consensus very quickly. The two topics are mainly about the reconstruction of the wizarding world, and no one would be so stubborn as to oppose such a topic for the country and the people. Eugene looked around and finally gave up the idea of raising the additional topic today, about taking back the economic and financial rights of the goblins. According to his guess when he discussed with Bernard, after the dark wizards were tried, the goblins and Gringotts would probably not obey when the Ministry of Magic wanted to confiscate their property. That would be the time for the Ministry of Magic to take back the rights openly. When Eugene was about to announce the end of the meeting, a director suddenly raised his hand. Eugene nodded to him to indicate that he had something to say. Mr. Minister, regarding the law you announced yesterday, I would like to ask, when you try the Death Eaters, will you follow the previous law or the new law? The new law will take effect from today. Eugene smiled slightly. The director blinked. He knew that the new law would take effect today, so which law would be used during the trial? However, Since Eugene did not give a clear answer directly, the director probably knew it in his heart, and said in his heart, "This is the minister's decision, and he can't do anything about it. There are only so many people in the entire British wizarding world, and they are more or less related to each other." The director was entrusted by his family to inquire about the situation. After all, some clauses of the new law are a bit too weird. The director's question seemed to open a conversation, and soon everyone who seemed to be fine raised their hands one by one. It seems that everyone has some questions about the law announced yesterday, so let the maker of the law answer them for everyone. Eugene was already dry-mouthed after presiding over a meeting, so he simply gave up his seat to Bernard. So everyone in the meeting room turned their eyes to Bernard, who had a low sense of presence because he did not speak throughout the meeting at present. Since Azkaban has not been repaired and the new law has just been announced, Bernard's current position is the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Everyone looked at this very young director, and some information about him came to their minds, but there was very little relevant information, only that he and the current temporary minister Eugene were classmates in the same dormitory when they were studying at Hogwarts, and that Eugene directly appointed him as the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Against all odds, no problem, Bernard was not afraid of the stage. He stood up and walked to the seat that Eugene gave up and sat down, looking at everyone at the long table. "If you have any questions, please feel free to ask." Originally, Bernard was an image of a relative in everyone's mind, but seeing his attitude and the law, they changed their opinion of him a little. Mr. Bernard, I noticed that you used the death penalty in the new law." An older witch smoothed her hair, tucked her silver hair behind her ears, and looked at Bernard with a sharp look. "Do you know that out of respect for life, the Ministry of Magic abolished the death penalty hundreds of years ago? Of course, life is priceless, and I agree with this very much." Bernard nodded, and then before the other party was about to speak, "Because of this, no punishment can redeem the crime of murder, except the death penalty." This made the witch choke. "Life is priceless, so only life can repay life. This is absolutely amazing." If she objects, doesn't she think that life can be measured by value? Although life does have a price in reality, whether from the perspective of the Ministry of Magic or the law itself, it is obvious that this kind of helplessness in reality should not be promoted, but the ideal justice should be promoted. It seems that your problem has been solved. If you have any questions, please feel free to come to me at any time." Bernard smiled and nodded to the witch, who fell into silence. Mr. Bernard, I have some questions to ask as well. A young wizard frowned and took out a book of laws while speaking. Oh, it can be seen that he is really confused. Bernard also knows that there are some parts in his law that are easy to cause misunderstanding and need explanation, so he restrained his aggression. "Please speak." "First of all, there is such a clause in the law. If the criminal is convicted of multiple crimes at the same time, the final trial result should add up the sentences of each crime. I could understand this one, but the example 2 given in the appendix of this article, in order to make it easier for these wizards to understand the content of the law, Bernard also attached some additional examples, and the wizard was talking about one of them. In example 2, the prisoner's various crimes are cumulatively sentenced to 4,785 years in prison, plus the death penalty. I can understand the cumulative punishment, but it should be meaningless to continue to accumulate more than 200 years, right? What's more, the death penalty is added. What's the point of such a punishment? Originally, there was no problem with this article. In reality, such a situation of 4,785 years in prison plus the death penalty is indeed possible, but it is problematic to appear in the example on the appendix. Each example in the legal annex has its own special meaning. He wanted to know why Bernard chose such an example. It couldn't be to show off his math skills, right? This is indeed a question of practical significance. I hope that subsequent questioners can learn from this colleague. Bernard explained with an understatement as he spoke. This example must be understood in conjunction with other information. First of all, the new law contains provisions on parole and commutation. In the previous Ministry of Magic, there were no provisions such as parole. Either you had to pay money to plead guilty and then be released directly, or you could go to jail, and there was basically no in between. And in Azkaban, guarded by Dementors, there is no such thing as good performance. Therefore, after seeing the parole regulations for the first time, everyone thought it was quite novel. But the problem is, Mr. Bernard, not to mention the death penalty, The time it takes to get out of prison through parole and commutation of a 4,785-year sentence is far beyond the human lifespan. The wizard couldn't help but remind Bernard there are also provisions for parole and commutation of sentence. No matter how good a person's behavior is, the commutation of sentence cannot be reduced to the time he or she is alive. I'm afraid this is not a joke in hell, so I just said first of all, listen to what I said. Believe me, the rebuilt Azkaban will be a warm and sunny place dedicated to attracting people to do good, so this prisoner does not have to worry about what he has obtained. Parole and commutation are not needed. Bernard showed a smile that sent a chill down his spine, because the reconstructed Azkaban can guarantee that no matter what the prisoner's final sentence is, he or she will be able to fully experience the entire sentence in 1,000 or 10,000 years. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.